I live with a feminist and a neckbeard by Thirdwheelbeardhouse. Hello Reddit. Recently stumbled on this sub. After spending an embarrassing amount of time laughing and cringing, I couldn't not tell you all about the goldmine that has been my living situation for the past 6 months. Warning, on phone. Can't format. Made this account because my beard roommate knows my main, and it has personal stuff tied to it. I'm a 23-year-old dude trying to figure out WTF to do with my life who got lucky enough to score this awesome place. Great location, great rent price, great building. Apparently what happened was a pipe burst, and the tenants had to emergency move while it was being fixed. Apparently 2/3 previous ones found other places, and one, the feminist, had paid rent way in advance but was backpacking when it was ready, so she let the landlord choose who moved in. I just got lucky. Landlord owed Neckbeard's parents a favor. She's 24. He's 27. A small list of incidents so far. My first day moving in and meeting him, Beardo attempts to bond over furry porn because of my werewolf apocalypse book. It's not nearly the same thing. Feminist is vegan. Beardo spiked her food and she got sick for a day. Beardo attempted the silent treatment over Fem bringing male friends over. When that didn't work, he threw a tantrum. Fem was an ironworker apprentice. Then a plumber apprentice. Now she's going to go into nursing school. Beardo attempted to educate her on why women shouldn't work. She deliberately blew the fuses in the apartment so that Beardo, and me TBH, couldn't game and made him apologize. He didn't know about circuit breakers. Beardo's ideals seem to fluctuate between incel/red pill shit to intense chivalrous and milady bullshit. I never know what I'm going to hear about or how Fem is going to be approached that day. Fem made me show Beardo how to do laundry because you're another FING man and he FING reeks, and do you think that FCR is going to listen to a FING woman? It took an hour and it was awful, and he doesn't use detergent when he does it. I tried. He attempts to male bond with me. I'm also rather nerdy, but it usually comes back to why women don't like him and bitches and chivalry, and all I can do is smile and nod. He won't take any advice. He's just too much of a nice guy. Sad because I've seen he could be a cool dude if he'd straighten up. If I bring a girl over, any girl, friend or otherwise, he insults the shit out of me and tries to be smooth to her, and it's just creepy. He's also asked for their numbers, if he can have them when I'm done, and for sexual details. Just no. He attempted to set a moral code in the apartment, over Fem drinking, bringing her FWB over and walking around in short shorts. It's fine for us to drink and walk around in just boxers though, Fem told him where to go. He tried to host an intervention over Fem drinking on the weekends. This included somehow getting her parents' info and calling her dad. Her dad is ex-military and liberal. It ended with her dad coming over and screaming for 2 hours at Beardo. Then Fem came home, surprised yo see her dad, learned what Beardo did, and they both proceeded to scream for at least another 20 minutes, at which point I had to go to work. Fem is bad at doing dishes and cleaning in general. Fortunately I'm pretty slack and bad at them too, but Beardo took it upon himself to nag Fem after leaving some bowls in a pot over a weekend. Fem barged into his room and snapped a bunch of pictures of the filth and threatened to send them to the landlord and his mother. He apologized. Fem sent them anyway and his mother was over yelling and making him clean. I stayed at a friend's overnight. TBH, I'm genuinely unsure if he likes Fem or hates her, or if because she's a female he feels a need to be something to her. She is definitely not your usual beard bait. She's cute but she's loud, tall, and has a really intense personality. I'm still confused by it. I think Fem is too. She's the one that half-jokingly said it's like I'm the kid caught between two parents staying together for me. Well, that's a quick summary. I'll have more to write but my thumbs are getting tired. Hope it's entertaining. If you like it I'll be sure to write more. Or more about these moments.
Phonebeard by silverpoet. I worked at a call center for a major tech company that also had a billing service attached to it. So besides troubleshooting people's devices, I also had to troubleshoot why their bill from said device's app store was so high. A lot of the time people can't be fucked to check their purchase history, but usually it's because a family member has access to their credit card or ID and then goes nuts. Anyways, I hope that is enough background info, so let's dive into this story. Me, thank you for calling Redacted Store Support. My name is Anon, how can I help you? Customer, why is my bill so damn high? It's like $80 a month and all I do is buy the 99-cent upgrades in Candy Crush. Theses are usual calls, so I usually just show the customer how to check their purchase history and subscriptions on their device. This can take a while, so while we're doing that I asked the customer, a very angry-sounding middle-aged lady, if anyone else has access to her ID or credit card. She indicates that her son does and that he'd never do anything without asking her because he's a perfect little angel who is studying animation and wants to move to Japan. You can see where this is going. Once we get to her purchase history, it hits mom like a foul wave of weeb and desperation. There is not one, but 2 Crunchyroll subscriptions, a bunch of in-app purchases for an anime dating sim, wish I remembered the name, and of course a Tinder Plus subscription. I try to walk mom through canceling all the stuff that is going to bill monthly, but I can't because she's too busy screaming for her son to come downstairs. At first he denies doing any of this and claims it's an accident. Mom puts me on speaker, and this is usually where I'd ask if he signed up for a free trial and forgot to cancel, but I could tell this guy was lying. So I put on my biggest customer service smile, because apparently people can hear that shit through the phone. Trust me, it works, and tell them since he didn't mean to do this we could go through canceling them. I always say we like the customer and I are on a team or something, but our system doesn't give us the buttons to just cancel someone's subscription. Yeah, it's kinda stupid. So unless I want to transfer these people up to a supervisor, they're gonna have to cooperate with me on this one. Yeah, that wasn't gonna happen. I start walking mom through it no problem when all of a sudden son, who I am going to call Phonebeard, suddenly pipes in. But mom, I need my anime. Picture the most entitled and desperate way that someone could say that line, and then double it. If my dog could talk, she would mooch with less desperation than that, and this dog will eat anything remotely smells like food the way only a former stray will. I had to mute myself so mom and Phonebeard couldn't hear me laughing while mom yelled at Phonebeard saying it wasn't worth $80 a month for him to watch cartoons. Apparently he didn't like them being called cartoons. Phonebeard, it's not cartoons, it's anime, and I need IT. Mom, well then, you need a job. Me, losing my shit laughing while muted. The idea of this guy, if his attitude was any indication, holding down a job for the sole purpose of funding his anime addiction and Tindering attempts was hilarious. Mom and Phonebeard, however, were focusing on the Crunchyroll stuff, so I didn't get to have any fun with that aspect. I gained my composure and walked mom through canceling everything and even got her to set her son up with his own ID so it wouldn't keep charging her credit card, suggested he go buy gift cards at the store and use those if he wanted to make in-app purchases, but if he wanted anything to bill monthly he'd need a credit card on file. He's losing his shit in the background and I pray to the phone company gods that this call gets pinged for a review so whoever gets to listen to it gets to laugh their ass off too. We finally get done all this stuff and I try to end the call, but oh no, now mom wants this all refunded. I need that money back because he didn't have permission to spend it. Now mom had entrusted her adult son with her credit card on file under the assumption that he was her precious little baby boy and wouldn't do that, but get it refunded? That's like handing your kid a 20 at Walmart and getting pissed when they spend it all on candy, eat the candy and then you storm into Walmart wanting your money back. The Crunchyroll and Tinder subscriptions were at least 6 months old, so that was a lot of money. Also, we had a limited time and extremely limited conditions we could refund stuff under. Not to mention we were in the middle of an audit for refunds anyways. Guess who got to talk to my manager? All in all, I kind of felt bad for this guy. Maybe anime and Tinder was the only thing he did besides eat, sleep and shit. But come on, there are tons of ways to get free anime online.
I used to run a game shop. By MisterKillam. I used to be the general manager of a tabletop game and hobby store. We were in a town right by a very large army base, so most of our customers were clean-cut, married soldiers. Good people. They generally played Warhammer for their weekly night out with the guys and kept to themselves. I still game with these cats. The other half of my customer base, the ones who played trading card games, were the absolute worst. Neckbeards to end all neckbeards, and every time I thought I'd seen it all, they surprised me again. I had to ban lewd body pillows after a couple of them brought their girlfriends to the store. My one female employee was always seconds away from a rampage with the Friday Night Magic crowd. Had to pull her out of working Fridays to prevent the inevitable physical violence. Our worst, or at least the worst that comes to mind at the moment, was Dean, name changed for privacy. He checked most of the boxes: obese, horrible diet, fedora on the head, messy eater, and a grade A asshole. Dean had a penchant for lewd diaper for playmats, think a giant mousepad to set your cards on during a game, and definitely didn't have a penchant for bathing. You smelled him before you saw him. He smelled far worse than even the average's trading card game player, and was at least in his late 20s. One evening, he was exceptionally ripe. Smelled like the dumpster outside a daycare, and other card players started complaining. I had a rule that if you smelled like you hadn't bathed, I'd call out your name loudly and kick you out, telling everyone that you smelled like ass. This angered the dean. He threw a screaming fit, ranting about how I was so horrible, that I'd last a customer forever, that people just came to see him play, and finished with I can't help how I smell, I can't help that I'm too big to wipe. You could have heard a pin drop after he said that. We were all just too horrified to speak, and when my brain recovered from that stunning revelation all I could say was get out or I'm calling the cops. He grabbed his things and stormed out, and the shop was a little quieter than usual for the rest of the night. I have plenty more if you guys are interested.
I was told you guys would like this. My girlfriend got REEE'd at IRL. By gbmaulin. So I've been working as a chef at a rather upscale Italian restaurant in a prominent West Coast city. About a week ago I started dating one of the waitresses who works at the same establishment. We're having a post-shift drink with a couple of co-workers when I happen to mention a customer with a baby blue fedora who had come in. My GF immediately makes a sour face and groans. Obviously our collective interest is piqued. We ask how he was as a customer. She looks visibly uncomfortable and says I don't want to talk about him, it's mean. I find myself a bit concerned, so I asked what happened. She proceeds to sigh and finish her drink. He asked for a chicken cordon bleu without the ham and cheese. My fellow chef and I glance at each other. I know he's a Redditor, he got me into it. So basically a chicken nugget. When I told him we don't fry our chicken in an effort to not cross-contaminate our fryers, he straight up shrieked at me. I'm struggling to hold back laughter as I ask what the shriek sounded like. It sounded like a shrey sound. It scared the shit out of me, and then his mother proceeded to lecture me about being intentionally uncooperative and being intimidated by the cooks. I legit start to giggle a bit and my coworker chimes in with that sucks, but did he have any facial hair? She said kind of, he had a mustache and a lot of hair on his double chin. I seriously can't stop laughing, but she seems genuinely traumatized by the entire event. For the record, the ticket I got in the kitchen was just a fried piece of chicken cut into strips. Edit, I apologize for the formatting, but whatever, it's my first post.
The Smelliest Boy of All by JanMichaelTenCent. TL, Dr. Teenage Neckbeard stinks up his dormitory and is forced to get clean. Long story incoming. I was sent to boarding school in the US when I was 14. I'd never lived away from home before and I was very introverted, so I was afraid making friends would be difficult. The campus was really big and green and beautiful, so I didn't mind being out in a dormitory called Chesterfield, which was the furthest from actual campus, maybe a 20-minute walk. Most of my dorm mates were cool, but there was one door in the hall upstairs that I had never seen open, even after orientation ended and classes began. I asked someone about it and they just rolled their eyes and said, "Oh, that's Todd's room. Y'all wanna stay away from Todd." I find out Todd is a 2-year sophomore, i.e. has redoing sophomore year for the 3rd time. He barely ever left his room except when the housemaster intervened. He never took a shower, literally never. He would just use up a big portion of the dorm's internet bandwidth and order greasy Chinese food from a nearby restaurant for every single meal. The first time I met Todd was at 7 a.m. as I was heading for the showers. I swear I smelled him before I even stepped into the bathroom. It was a disgusting reek of body odor, flatulence, mold, and something undefinable but horribly organic, almost fishy. I have no idea why he smelled that way, but God help me, it still haunts me nearly 18 years later. Todd himself looked surprisingly inoffensive, really. He was short and pasty and somewhere between fat and stout. He had a pretty thick bushy redneck beard that impressively didn't actually reach his face at all, it just stopped right at the jawline. His face was super greasy and pockmarked, and his hair was short and frizzy. He was wearing dirty, stained and torn sweatpants that looked like they'd been used to soak up chemical spills or something, and a ragged t-shirt. He looked like an Amish garden gnome. He looked like the Keebler elf put in charge of the licorice and onion cookies. He looked like a bad Oscar the Grouch cosplay. He also smelled like a Balrog's jockstrap. As soon as I walk in, he points a chubby finger at me, looks at me all intense and yells, "Who the fuck are you?" Me, Mop. "Who the fuck are you?" Todd, leaning in and actually sniffing the air around me, sniffs, "Where are you from?" "Are you Indian?" Sniff sniff. "I am Arab, so my skin is a few shades darker than the average white person." At this distance his smell was just overpowering and I was trying not to breathe or gag. Me, sleepy and horrified, "No." I walk past him to go to the showers, edging around him and holding my breath. As I'm washing, I suddenly hear Todd yell down the hallway, crazy tantrum style, for our housemaster, "Mr. Jonas, why is there a fucking Indian in our dorm?" My housemaster wrote Todd up for that little outburst. Todd got written up a lot. Turns out he was brought up by a really crazy racist mother and even though there were a few East Asian kids and Indian kids and Latino kids and black kids at the school, he really specifically hated me. So for a few weeks this angry, smelly little homunculus went out of his way to showcase his disapproval of our school's admissions policy vis-a-vis letting terrorist goat fucker Al-Qaeda scum attend American schools and steal American knowledge. He submitted a complaint about me to my housemaster every few days or so. Some of his complaints about me: Op uses the bathroom late at night and purposefully disturbs his dorm mates. Op was spotted stealing napkins from the dorm rec room. Op stole books from the library. I had checked out books for a class, but Todd decided I'd just swipe them / Op hogs all the washers and dryers in the laundry room. This one was particularly stupid since Todd was notorious for never washing his clothes ever / Op is spreading anti-American terrorist propaganda. I shit you not. He even demanded that the dean inform the FBI. This was before 9/11 and the creating of Homeland Security. / Now, as bad as Todd seemed, he was actually easy to deal with because no one ever saw him. He only emerged to pick up his $5 egg foo yoon from the delivery guy, sometimes go to class, or when the housemaster made him come down and do his house chores. He never attended dorm meetings, never socialized with anyone, barely even opened his door. That last fact was a huge blessing because Todd's room stank so much all the kids neighboring him chipped in to buy plug-in air fresheners and sprays to make the hallway more tolerable. They complained to the housemaster a lot, and Mr. Jonas had frequent talks with him about his hygiene, but Todd would just turn on the water in the shower and rinse himself just enough to look like he'd actually washed. The guy seemed terrified of soap, and to this day I still don't understand why. Flash forward to spring midterms and everyone is stressed and not interested in putting up with more shit. The weather was getting hot and Todd had taken to opening his windows and his door, a crack, to create a vacuum cooling vortex in his room, his words. The result was evident one day when we all got back to the dorm from class to discover that the entire building now smelled like Todd's room. It smelled like a pack of skunks having an orgy in a dumpster at Burning Man. It smelled like a sick walrus with diarrhea trapped in a hot room. It smelled like Jabba the Hutt's hemorrhoids. Even now as I'm recalling it, something in me wants to gag. It was insidious. Even after washing my bedclothes 3 times I could still smell it. Eventually I just had to buy new sheets. Naturally everyone was pissed as hell that their clothes and beds and books and stuff all stank. The lawn outside the dorm was littered with all the stuff we'd thrown out hoping the sun might purify this unholy corruption. The housemaster was suddenly facing 20 angry kids all demanding that something be done about Todd. To make matters worse, the housemaster's family lived in an attached house, so even their space got some of Todd's signature musk, and Mrs. Jonas was even angrier than we were. So Mr. Jonas called a dorm meeting. Todd, unsurprisingly, didn't show. So the few lacrosse and football jocks among us all stormed upstairs to Todd's room, took deep breaths, and ran in and manhandled his stinky ass out of the pit. We had all taken to calling Todd's room the pit. Todd was struggling and trying to do kung fu kicks and shoryuken uppercuts on them, which only made them angrier. One of them starts pulling Todd down the hall suddenly, shouting "fuck the meeting, let's get him in the fucking shower." So 4 kids are now dragging a screeching Todd by his arms and legs down the hall as a 5th turns on the water. But there's a problem. Who's going to strip this kid? No one wants to touch any more of him than they have to, and absolutely no one wanted to see him naked. Todd was angrily threatening everyone and calling them pussies and cowards and promising to report them all for this violation of his human rights. Then the 5 jocks, as one, all shrug, pick him up, and just heave him into the shower, clothes and all. Now Todd is writhing on the wet floor of the shower, actually hissing like a vampire as the water sprays on his face, pretending to be hurt and occasionally squealing, like actually squealing like a pig, like the movie Deliverance. Everyone in the dorm has crowded around as best as we could. It was a small bathroom, and we can even hear Mr. Jonas coming up the stairs yelling about the noise. One of the guys, Eric, hero of the hour, and also Todd's immediate neighbor, grabs the mop from the cleaning cupboard, the same one we use to mop the dirty floors, and brandishes it at Todd. "Either you grab some soap and start scrubbing, Todd, or I'm using this. Okay, Todd? We're sick of this. You have been stinking up this storm for nearly 3 years now, and we've had enough. I will wash you with this mop, Todd, like they wash elephants at the zoo. Unless you pick up that soap over there and start cleaning yourself." His voice is calm, but with that shaky edge to it that implies someone is just a hair's breadth away from snapping. I honestly remember his knuckles were white where he gripped the mop. That scene is burned in my memory. I was standing on the toilet, short kid, to see over Eric's shoulder. Todd was kneeling in the water all dramatic, his little eyes as wide as they could go, eyeing Eric and the rest of us, eyeing the mop, water dripping down his frizzy beard and soaking into his clothes. It was almost a Renaissance painting. Mr. Jonas has by this point forced himself into the crowded bathroom and is taking in the scene. He stands perfectly still for about 7 seconds, all of us looking at him, except Eric, the champion, who is staring Todd down with the determination of Hercules facing Cerberus. Todd is trying to look extra pathetic and victimized to curry more sympathy with the housemaster. Then Mr. Jonas just points at us with a stern look and says, "Do not hurt him." And then he turns around and walks out of the bathroom. Outside we can hear him telling some of the kids to grab some masks and gloves from the cleaning supply closet, and his disgusted groan as he opens the door to Todd's room and gets a face full of the reeking swampy stink. So on that fateful afternoon we all stood there and watched Todd reluctantly scrub his face, his beard, his hands and arms, all the while muttering threats about reporting us to the dean and the Department of Education and the FBI and his mother. Eric makes him take his shirt and sweatpants off and throw them into a garbage bag. I wish I could somehow forget noticing that Todd's underwear, which had been white when they were new, were a gray shading to brown. No one there asked him to remove them. Mr. Jonas and a few heroic dorm mates cleaned Todd's room out, removing a good 3 big trash bags full of old rotten Chinese food, pizza boxes, wadded tissue paper, half-disintegrated shoes and socks, and various other pieces of human detritus. They scrubbed the floors and the walls. They washed every piece of clothing and fabric they could take out of the room. They sprayed so much air freshener in there it looked like a fog. After that whole incident, we organized a duty schedule that included making sure that Todd showered at least twice a week. Everyone had to do it in groups of 2. We had to go knock on Todd's door and take him to the shower, where he was allowed to wear a bathing suit or shorts as we watched him actually scrub himself down with soap and shampoo. If he refused, we told him we would literally hose him down inside his room, spraying his beloved computer and books and everything down too if we had to. The first time it was my turn to take part in this, Todd just shook his head and stared at me with hate in his piggy eyes and said, "I know you're the one who made them do this. Don't think you've fucking won, you goat fucker." I moved dorms the next year, and maybe saw Todd another 5 times total before I graduated. Someone told me he's married now and living back home. All I can wonder is what that house must smell like.
Got invited to a Neckbeard party, showed up with my BF and they spiked his drink. By junkfoodmama. So I just found this sub, and hold on to your horses guys, cause I got a doozy for you. This happened a long time ago, but this is still one of the craziest and scariest experiences I've ever had. It's long, so I'll put a TL, doctor at bottom. I was 19 at the time and had just moved to a new city with my BF who was 21. We mostly moved to get away from my crazy family, so we were basically starting over and had no friends. I started working at this chain restaurant, and this is where I meet my first neckbeard, NB1. I didn't realize he was a neckbeard at first, mostly because he was rail skinny and we had a uniform policy that was pretty well enforced. So I didn't get the smack you in face clues that come along with your ravaged neckbeard. I should have known though. There were signs that he was off, but he was mostly really quiet at work and I just thought he was your typical nerdy guy. So one day I'm working the lunch shift and so is NB1, and he asks me what my plans were for that night. I was honest with him and told him nothing, and that is when he told me that he and his band were having a party that night and that there would be a keg and that I should stop by. I remember he made a big deal about also inviting my BF, saying of course your BF is invited, I wouldn't expect a pretty little lady like you to show up somewhere without an escort, with a creepy fucking wink. That should have been my sign, but my BF and I hadn't done anything fun in months. We were super broke and I guess I was desperate to try and start meeting people. So I agreed to go. I get home from work and fill my BF in about the party. He seems excited. He is a musician, and when he heard that it was this guy and his band, he was hoping to find some people to jam with. We get to the party and it isn't what we were expecting at all. It looked more like a gathering of D&D. When this guy said band, I was thinking rock band. Turns out it was a bunch of people from his old HS marching band. The guy who invited me greets us in the parking lot, and this time he's wearing his full neckbeard gear. He had the fedora, vest, and fingerless gloves. Most of the people at the party were wearing one or all of these items too. It's a surprisingly huge party that was being held in 4 apartments that were near each other, and the EDM was blaring so loud. I give my BF and look, cause I knows that we are in for a weird night, but my sweet BF is so nice and willing give anyone a chance. He wants to stay and have a good time. Yeah, he regrets the decision now. Now I'm not sure if the original plan was to try and drug my drink or both mine and BF drinks, but I'm guessing I threw NB1 for a loop because I don't drink alcohol at all. Ever. So I had come prepared with my own bottle of water. I'm guessing in a last-ditch effort he decided to still spike BF drink and try to incapacitate him for the night. We had been there for about an hour, and even though BF had only had 2 beers at that point, he was a little more tipsy than he should have been. We were standing in a group of people chatting about different music and instruments when NB1 mentions that his friend has really cool instrument next door that BF has to see it, and drags my BF away to another part of the party, leaving me there alone with a group of neckbeards and no backup. I keep up polite conversation for a few minutes before I spotted another girl sitting alone on a couch. I tried to exit the group, but they ended up just following me over and kept interrupting the conversation the girl and I were trying to have. It was so annoying. After a while, a rather large neckbeard attempted to squeeze himself onto the couch with us. Introducing NB2. So NB2 is typical neckbeard, large, fat and greasy. He gives us a tip of his fedora and tells us, you know, this is my apartment and my couch, and since you're sitting on my couch that must make you mine, and he gave us this shit-eating grin. I couldn't help my reaction. I literally snorted and belted out, yeah right. He gave me the nastiest look and his tone was angry when he replied, you know what? If I really wanted to, I could put something in your drink and make you have sex with me. I would make you mine. And then he started laughing. I jumped up off the couch extremely freaked out, and he attempted to pull me back down, exclaiming he was just joking, that's just his sense of humor and that I just don't get it. I shake him off and start calling my BF because I now realize it's been somewhere near 45 minutes to an hour since I've seen him. He isn't answering, so I start looking for him. NB2 is following me and trying to get me to see that he is really a good guy if I just give him a chance. I finally screamed, leave me alone, and that got him to back off. By the time I find my BF, I'm close to tears and freaking out. I find my BF almost passed out, leaned up against the wall outside with NB1 standing by him. I freak out now, really crying, and try to ask BF what's going on. He can barely get the words out but tells me he feels weird and wants to go home. The whole time NB1 is going on and on about how a lady needs to be with a gentleman that wouldn't treat her in such a way, and he would never get so drunk and leave me all defenseless. He wouldn't stop. I ended up somehow dragging my BF to the car, all while NB1 kept on rambling about how he was the right one for me. I got BF in the car and told NB1 to never talk to me again and GTFO. This is where I messed up. I didn't take BF to the hospital. I thought maybe he had gotten really drunk. Maybe went off and did a bunch of shots. He wasn't a huge partier, but he could throw down on occasion. It wasn't until he later sobered up he told me he couldn't remember anything past the second drink he had. That's when I made the connection with everything that happened and that BF had been roofied. I was so freaked out, but I didn't know what to do. My BF didn't want to go to the hospital and I didn't feel up to calling the police. The next day I called my manager at work. I told him what had happened, but he basically said since it didn't happen at work there wasn't anything he could do about it. So I quit. NB1 never tried to contact me, so I have no idea what he is up to. I hope in jail. I regret now not going to the police, but at the time I just really wanted to forget that night. Be careful out there, ladies. Guys, you too. Never know who they will try it on. TL, Dr. I got invited by a Neckbeard to his Neckbeard party. He then roofied my BF and one of his Neckbeard friends threatened to rape me.
I quit my job at GameStop because of a Neckbeard coworker by KomatiiteMeBro. Girl. Painfully relevant. When I started working at GameStop, I thought it was a gamer's dream, play and talk about games all day, and get paid for it. What could go wrong? Oh, it could go wrong all right. One of my co-workers was a planetary neckbeard who always wore the exact same black shirt and black pants, down to the food stains. He chugged Pepto-Bismol constantly. He was greasy all the time. Blackheads galore, would-be/r/Parping's disgusting wet dream. Long black hair, always in a ponytail. His scent was best described as axe to acrid. Best guess on age was early to mid-20s, but his acne was so bad I literally have no remote idea. He wouldn't do shit. Both on his break and when he was supposed to be working, he sat in the back room playing games on his PSP on top of the console boxes, and he was so fat he actually broke one of the PSEs once. He used to pressure people at the food court to fill up his styrofoam food container with more food. On the down low, he got a number of the stores to charge more employees a smaller amount for food so he could double his helpings per shift. He was so fat he often couldn't even make it out of the store in time for the timed alarm to set when we'd close. He was so fat he would pick up his stomach and rest it on the counter. I want to make it clear that I'm not saying these things to fat shame him, but I am definitely hygiene and etiquette shaming him. He just never seemed to bathe or be aware of his surroundings. Battletoads was the funniest thing in the world to him. He would make Battletoads jokes all the time to absolutely nobody's amusement. He would even call the store while he was on his break to ask if we had Battletoads. He wouldn't care if credit cards were cut in half and retaped. He'd run them through anyway. This was Miami, so it may have been fair to assume half of the normal credit cards were stolen anyway. He would always make customers nervous by asking them about their first 4 digits of the credit card instead of the last 4 because he memorized them and he wanted to freak them out, and it was a totally inappropriate thing to do. He was apparently so hated by his previous GameStop that they barred him from working at one of the stores in a nicer part of town. He was always lazy, always leave stuff undone. The only thing I actually saw him do was to alphabetize things on the upper shelves but not the lower shelves because he never bent down. Sometimes he would sit down, but because we had such small space the customers would just walk around awkwardly, so he just stopped doing that. He would always have a giant soda, biggest styrofoam container of soda they sold at the mall, all the time. But that's just the introduction. If everything I just described was the human equivalent of forgetting to pay a parking ticket on time, buckle in and prepare your body for social. Hiroshima. One night he asked me if I could drive him to the train station after shift. It being Miami, the outside temperature was usually on the range of the surface of the sun, so I figured it was at least a humane thing to do, considering the train station was several blocks away. As he got in my car, the car tilted towards him and remained that way for the duration of the ride. I don't remember anything we talked about because the last words he spoke to me before he got out of the car have been laser etched into my brain for all eternity. When I get home, I'm going to masturbate to you. I handed in my 2-week notice the next day.
I dated a Legbeard, female Neckbeard story, by PopTarnekPop. Hey, I'm sure many of you have read stories like this, but I thought I'd say my tale of the time I dated a Legbeard in high school. For this story, I'll be calling the Legbeard Pound and I'll be calling myself T. This story takes place literally my freshman year of high school, specifically my second semester. At the time I hadn't exactly been looking to get into the dating scene just yet since, of course, it was my first year and I doubted any relationship would last long since I was still basically a child. Now, I should probably give you a bit of context about me. I'm not exactly a looker, not by any means. I stood at around 511 and was overweight, still am today, had long hair that went down to my shoulders due to a metal phase I was going through, typically wore t-shirts with puns on them and black sweatbands, and had a lip piercing. I know, I was an edgy kid. My first encounter with Pound was with a mutual friend her and I had. We all met at the table during lunch on the first day back and she introduced me to Pound. Now, some context for Pound: she was a sophomore at our high school, though was already 17 due to being held back a full year. She stood at 52, but what she lacked in height, she made up for in width, weighing nearly 400 pounds at the time. She had shorter hair than me surprisingly and had acne that made her look like she had just shoved her face into a pizza. She always wore a jacket that looked like it had oil spread across the sleeves of it, and not car oil. I'm talking oil used for deep frying. Her odor though was the most disgusting part about her. It smelt like roadkill mixed with freshly diced onions. Anyways, her and I talked, mostly due to me kinda feeling bad for her since if neither my friend or I sat there, she'd always sit alone. I found out that she actually is a fan of a few things I am, such as some weeb shit animes and some bands. One thing that I couldn't help but feel awkward about though is that whenever we talked, she'd always talk as if she was a scene kid from 2007 MySpace with the whole REEEE'd bullshit. After about a month of knowing this girl, she somehow finds me on Facebook, which doesn't even have my actual name for it. I went by a nickname since so many kids in my class had the same name. This meant she most likely just asked a friend for it. I didn't exactly think much of it at the time, so I accepted her friend request. Biggest mistake I ever made. She began messaging me not long after that, and the talking that usually was reserved for the few times we met at the lunch table were now almost a daily occurrence. Luckily though, we usually talked in a group chat with the friend I mentioned earlier, so conversations didn't exactly get dull. There was one conversation though that went similar to this. Friend: hey T. Pound has something to ask you. T. Oh, well why doesn't she just ask me? Friend: she's with my hanging at the moment. And doesn't have her phone. T. Okay. What she want? Friend: she wanted to know if you would like to go on a date? It took me a minute to acknowledge that what she was asking me was actually real. I mean, of course I was being nice to Pound, but I didn't think that our friend was thinking we were hitting it off. At the most, I thought we were just normal acquaintances. Anyways, so, me being the nice and dumb, decided to say why the fuck not? T. Ooh, sure. I guess. Friend: great. I'll let her know. Let's fast forward to what exactly Pound wanted to do for a date. It was 6 o'clock about a week later from the previous conversation, and, me not having a license due to my age, waited for about 30 minutes for Pound to pick me up. She arrived in a 2001 Toyota Camry that was rusted beyond hell and looked like it dipped to the side Pound was sitting on. I open the passenger door and am met by piles of fast food cups and bags covering the front and back passenger seats. Just scoot it over, Pound says. I obliged hesitantly and pushed the garbage, calling it simply what it is, to the back. Once Sim buckled up with a soda-stained seatbelt, she starts driving. "Where are we going?" I ask. We hadn't talked about just what it was we were doing for this date. I had simply thought that we'd discuss it for a brief moment and drive there. I had about $50 on me, so most restaurants were on the table. The library has an anime night with all the free ramen you can eat. I thought we'd go there. She responded. How romantic. Instead of questioning her, I just shrugged it off and said it was cool with me. Hey, free cash for shit. Plus, I was a fucking weeb. Might as well weeb out. We got to the library about 20 minutes later and we walked inside. She keeps trying to grab my hand and I kept shrugging her off. Eventually we get to the room and, oh my god, it's just a sea of neckbeards. The whole room smelt like Cheeto dust and gym socks. My only solstice while we were there was the fact we sat in the back where it was less up in your face. I sit there beside her and talk with her for a bit. Again, we chatted about the common interests we have for the time, but I couldn't see that spark that tends to happen at the start of relationships. Everything is going smoothly until she hits me with a bombshell. So what's your thoughts on tentacle hentai? I nearly spat out my drink when she asked me such a question in an incredibly crowded place. Who asks these questions? Shouldn't there be some unspoken rule in conversation where fucking hentai shouldn't be brought up? I don't know, I don't exactly watch hentai, I said, setting down my glass. Well, I think it's incredible. I would love to just have a tentacle beast shove its tentacles inside all my holes until I'm gagging. This bitch had no shame. After that remark I couldn't be asked to talk to this woman seriously. Pound was just too fucking weeby for even my tastes. The night quickly came to a close after that though and she drove me home. We said our goodbyes and I went inside my house and climbed into bed. Immediately I was bombarded with texts from, you guessed it, Pound. The messages ranged from I had a good time tonight and will you be my senpai followed by those infamous Huo emojis people have been sending recently. I didn't respond to any of the messages until I got something that will haunt my dreams. About an hour after the first storm of messages came up, I was sent an image. Originally, my phone didn't show any actual image with it, so I opened it. God, I truly regret it. Pound had decided to send me a picture of her unwashed and lice-infested vag. I'm not joking. It looked like a roast beef sandwich from an Arby's dumpster turned sideways. Oh, and I was being serious about the fucking lice. I could literally see fine bugs glistening in her pubes from the light of the camera. Needless to say, I vomited and immediately stopped talking to her. I avoided her for about a year before she stopped messaging me, actually having to threaten to get the police involved once she turned 18. I removed her off of all social medias and had to explain to my friend why I blocked Pound. Once I told her everything, she decided to put their friendship on hiatus. Thanks for reading. Sorry it was long. Just thought I'd share some shit with y'all.
A neckbeard groomed me for years, assaulted me, and bit off my nipple by YamesBint. 12 years ago, I got in a relationship with a much older guy. It was in the early days of the internet and a lot of people still used those old-timey forums that are now a lot popular. It is in this setting, on a very obscure forum that no longer exists, that I met a guy. He would send me private messages on a regular basis, and I would reply. They were very innocent at first. I was into poetry and writing short stories and so was he. So that I would send my work to him, and he would critique them. He did so in a genuinely nice, friendly and concerned way. Like he really cared about my improvements. I also urged him to send his own material to me. He seemed very reluctant to do so. When I pressed him, he said, I am not sure if it's appropriate to your age. I was 14, mind you. And he was 32. Slowly but surely, he started detailing his life to me, how his day-to-day existence looked like. It was a very sad story. His father had died when he was just 2 years old and his mother had remarried to a very abusive man who soon also left. A long list of cruel and unusual characters entered his life, a revolving door of uncles his mother would date and be left by. Somehow, he managed to remain an only child. I haven't given the man a name yet. Let's call him Writer. Just, writer. Because writing was his life and it's writing that we bonded over initially. Writer was lonely for most of his life. At the age of 25 he flew in an import bride who joined him and his mother, but the woman declared after a few unsuccessful attempts at sex, that she was asexual and therefore, he confided in me, they had not had intercourse for several years. He admitted to me that this made him terribly horny all of the time, and extremely frustrated. But he swore to me that he would behave. He was conflicted telling me these things, but as I also shared my own sad life story, my own abusive upbringing, my very mean mother and perpetually absent businessman father, he also opened up more and more. It got to a point that little old friendless me considered this 30-something man to be my only friend. And he told me the same thing, that I was his only friend in the whole world. After talking for months and months over private message, we exchanged email addresses. I wasn't even allowed to have an email at the time, but I made one just for him. This made communications easier between us. Email, and later MSN for real-time chats. Every morning I would wake up to another letter from him. Sometimes short, sometimes very long and descriptive. Or explicit. Altogether, the letters would have filled several books and made up quite a series. It was therapeutic for me to share the things I shared. And it felt good to be trusted by someone with all of his woes in life, all of his issues and struggles. It was after months of talking that he finally sent me a picture of himself. He had been dreading to do so, he told me, because of his ugliness. And when he sent me, I will admit, he was not a handsome man at all. Despite only being in his early 30s, he was heavily balding with a comb-over. His fashion sense was shit, kind of like my grandfather. Hawaii shirts. Chest hair sticking out. Very obvious man boobs and several chins. He had a large body, large bone structure. Wide shoulders, huge pot belly. He had a pug nose, thick lips and very thick eyebrows. His eyes were strikingly blue and he had a scar on his cheek from a stabbing by one of his stepfathers. His lower face was covered with a patchy beard, very thick in some areas and very thin in others, growing in a strange pattern. He had a thick mustache with long hairs sticking out unevenly. Some of the pictures he gave me featured him wearing a fedora, which he called the classiest way to hide my baldness. He was expecting me to be disgusted and stop talking to him, he said, but I was already so drawn in by the connection I thought we shared that I would never have stopped talking to him even if he had asked me to. I told him exactly that. That he was special to me, dear to me, and that I would not let go of what we shared for $1 million. He was so touched by it. In retrospect, I can now see how Writer was subtly grooming me. Fishing for pity, going on and on about how ugly and undesirable he was and how his whole life was in shambles. His wife, Michelle, was so mean to him. He told me how she actually hit him at times. What does she do? Like she just slaps you? I asked him. He said he was ashamed to say it and I urged him not to be ashamed. She hurts my dangly bits, he shared. Shyly she hits my balls. Slaps them. Squeezes them. It's so painful and I want it to stop. She says she does this because she doesn't want kids anyway. And I am too ugly to pass on my ugly genes. So, she hurts me. Oh, what the fuck? What a horrible woman. I was mad at her, enraged by how she mistreated my dear friend. Meanwhile, this is a 63 man and his wife was barely 5 foot tall in heels, as he told me. At no point did I ever get suspicious of his claims, even though I very much should have. Especially when he shared a house with an always present, overbearing mother who surely would have noticed abuse if it went on for years and years. But I believed every word. I pitied him so much. Writer was fat. I wrote that before, but let me just give you an impression of how fat he was exactly. We're talking legit Biggest Loser material. Figuratively and literally as well. He was so obese that he said he had trouble with mobility and he was on disability because of it. He also believed he had a form of autism, but it had gone unnoticed and undiagnosed because he was born in the early 1970s and it was less of a thing back then. At some point he told me he was insecure about his body. I said so was I, that I was sure he must be somewhat attractive because how else did he get a wife in the first place? There must have once been a spark of attraction. No, he said, she just married me for the green card and stuck around for convenience as her needs were met for the most part. He asked me if I wanted to maybe see his body, so that I could tell him what my thoughts were. I agreed. I didn't really know how to say no at this point. So, he shared his nudes. A surprisingly small, bulbous penis buried in a nest of hair fat. It looked even tinier when he held it in his huge sausage-fingered hands with hairs covering every huge finger. I was grossed out but told him it was nice. He decided that, since he had shown his body to me, I should now also share mine. Because it would be only fair. Shit. I'm further ashamed by what I did next, but I actually went to the bathroom. I stripped down to my bra and panties and took pictures of my body, hoping he would be satisfied with this. But when I sent them, he said I was expecting more skin. I didn't exactly, hold back in what I sent you, did I? So you should really return the favor. Now I have always been insecure about my body, and at the time, we had been talking for months. I had only just turned 15. I told him about my insecurities and he replied, what better way to get over your insecurities and body issues than to share your naked body with me? You know I would never, ever judge you, so back into the bathroom I went. This time my bra and panties went off. I was so insecure of my little pudgy belly, my tiny mosquito bite breasts with enormous, protruding puffy nipples, my wide hips and thunder thighs. Not to mention my fat pussy and the blonde hairs covering it. I even shaved for him before taking the pictures, so that he would like me better. And he did, very much. He praised my body, and said I was a real woman already. I felt anything but a real woman, but he insisted I was. In the days and nights that followed, he would get more and more explicit in his appreciation of my body. He started sending me tribute pictures in which he had printed out pictures of my breasts and vagina and ejaculated over them. You make me spray like a fire hose, baby girl, much more than Michelle ever did. I was disgusted at first, but bit by bit, my disgust evaporated. After all, this is what men and women did, right? Weeks and much sexting later, including some select opportunities we had to have webcam fun, he was in a sad mood. He cried over the genital abuse his wife had put him through, which had been particularly bad. He seemed so sad and broken, he described it very gruesomely and explicitly. 12 years later I know that he probably got off on this sort of thing. And describing to me his pains and talking about his junk being abused. But I didn't know that at the time. I just felt like he was such a pitiful and sad human being and I wanted to hug him and tell him everything would be okay. So I told him that. And he seemed moved, and bemused. I wish I could have a child one day, be a father. But I fear that being with Michelle is slowly but surely destroying my abilities to ever father a child. I just need someone kind and sweet who can take care of me and give me the family I always dreamed of having. You know, someone like you. I was very shocked by this. But also, kind of moved. Here was a man who was so kind-hearted and such a misunderstood, broken soul. Mistreated by the world and all those owned him. I said I could wait. Maybe in 3 years when I would be a legal adult, we could meet up and be together? He said that I would probably find someone else before that time. That a girl as beautiful as me would surely find someone else and grow tired sooner or later of his ugly ass. I insisted, no, I wouldn't. But he said I would. He was so certain of it. Unless, of course, we could be together sooner, he suggested. I countered that I was too young to marry and have kids. That I was terrified of childbirth from my mother and grandmother's horror stories, and that it wouldn't even be legal for us to marry and cohabit anyway because of how young I was. Well, it used to be legal, you know, he said. It isn't anymore. I know that, But long ago it was the most normal thing in the world for a much younger and a much older man to be together. This went on and on for a while. He would get very sappy and melodramatic over email. Wrote me long, sweet, overly romantic love letters. Eventually I agreed that, while I was not sure about the whole running away and staying together thing he had proposed, we could at least meet up sometime in a motel nearby. He lived about an hour drive from me and said he would book a motel room and see me there. I was terrified as hell, but I managed to sneak out of the house in the dead of the night on the proposed date and find my way to the roadside motel he was already staying in since the day prior. My father was gone on another long trip, and my mother was passed out on the sofa, drunk as hell. This was a common occurrence during my childhood. I wore a dress from my mother's that I stole. It showed a lot of cleavage. I even put on makeup. Badly. But looking in the mirror before I left the house, I felt beautiful. I felt wanted and desired. About to meet up with the neckbeard of my dreams. Or so he brainwashed and groomed me to believe. I knocked on the door. Heavy footsteps. The door opening. His huge, heavily breathing figure looming over me in the doorframe. He smelled like aftershave and mouthwash. He had shaved for the occasion, no beard, only his unruly mustache, which was now a bit more groomed. He wore a white button-down shirt and had what little hairs he had on top of his head combed to the side. "I'm so happy you made it," he said in a bit of a hushed voice. "I was afraid you wouldn't be able to make it. You can't imagine the shit I had to go through with Michelle and Mother to even be here." I told them this was some convention. He gave me a fat wink. He looked around. Left. Right. Then he closed the door of the apartment quickly. He stretched out his huge arms for a hug. I gave him one. He wrapped his arms around me. I felt safe for only a second or 10. After that I noticed his huge ham hands started trailing the bones of my spine down to my butt. He tried to wriggle my way out of his crushing embrace, but I couldn't. He wrestled his fingers underneath my panties and cupped my entire left butt cheek in one gigantic hand. Nice," he moaned. "Let's just chat a bit," I nervously suggested, still trying to get away. "No, he said. "I cannot, not now, not after all these years of frustration and loneliness. Tonight is a night for passion. Tonight is a night for you and me." He was breathing very heavily now, as if the act of groping my ass was already wearing him out. I could finally smell something much fouler on his breath, something no amount of Listerine could wash away. A smell of death. Rotting teeth. They were so yellow and gross up close. "Please no," I said. But he pushed me on the bed with surprising strength. In one move, he ripped my entire dress off my body. Seconds later my bra and panties came off, ripped to shreds by the gigantic fat neckbeard. I covered my breasts with my hands, but he moved my hands away effortlessly and started sucking on my left nipple. Hard. I started kicking him at this point, yelling, "Stop, stop." He began to bite down. Hard. I started screaming. What happens next is a bit of a blur. But I remember kicking him the groin repeatedly as his teeth drew blood. He was grinning like a madman. I kicked harder and harder. He moaned with a mixture of pleasure and pain, as I screamed harder and harder. Suddenly the room was light. I heard loud knocks. Footsteps. Many arms grabbed him and pulled him off me. I was crying so hard and in shock. My chest was covered in blood. I passed out at this point. A group of footballers from a neighboring room had heard my screams and come to my rescue, kicking in the door and wrestling the neckbeard monster down. I woke up in the hospital. The doctor told my nipple had been torn clean off. He had been able to restore it, but I would always have scars, which over the years would become less noticeable. He told me my mother and grandmother were there. My father was on his way from Dallas. If I was ready to see them? The aftermath was long and painful. But Rita was arrested. Me and my family pressed charges. For aggravated assault, torture, attempted rape and statutory rape. Grooming a minor. Anything we could slap on him. Turns out he really was married. During the case he got a divorce. He was sentenced harshly. As I write this, writer is still in jail and will be for the next decade or so. He has written me several letters since. I burned the last one, unopened, 2 years ago. After that, nothing.
The neckbeard who threatened to blackmail me so he could hook up with my friend by makeamericagayagain. Back in high school, there was this kid who I'll call Greg. Now Greg was a disgusting human being who never learned the concept of a shower or normal human relations. He was frequently sent home for smelling so bad, and his only friends were fellow neckbeards who talked about anime and how everyone but then was an idiot. While I'm now a proud gay man, I was in the closet except to a few friends who just so happened to be the pretty girls everyone liked. I wasn't super effeminate either because this was in the South and I didn't want to be the next Matthew Shepard. Greg was a freshman who had an older brother who was his exact opposite. He was an Adonis who I had a huge crush on. Sometimes it was fairly obvious that I had a crush and Greg seems to have picked up on it. One of my lady friends was a PYT named Brit. Now Brit may have been very beautiful but she was also very smart. I was particularly close to her so we sat by each other at lunch. Apparently, Greg liked Brit and was known to make uncomfortable passes at her, but she was always gracious. He thought that he could get to her by going through me. The only reason I put up with his atrocious stench was his older brother who I would ask about. Unfortunately, he picked up on my attraction and began to vaguely reference it. "Brit's really hot. She acts like she likes you," he would say. "We're just friends, you know," I would respond. "My brother only likes girls. Normal guys like girls." I start getting nervous. "You should tell Brit to go out with me or I'll tell my brother all about you." Once I told Brit about everything that happened. She said she would take care of it. What happened next would make my jaw drop at how devious she could be. Before class with everyone in the hallway, Brit walked straight up to Greg and said very loudly, "Makeamericagayagain wants you to know he doesn't like dudes and wishes you would stop trying to ask him out." She completely flipped the tables and the heat was on Greg who couldn't even talk. He left me alone, I was safe from rumors, and Brit showed me how to outsmart neckbeard creeps.
If I took a woman home, I wouldn't even sleep with her by Persecute 24. When I was about 18 I went to a skeevy dive bar in London to see some live music with friends. While we were queuing for the ladies, a young man wearing a fedora and long coat corners us and starts talking. MPC, friend is GC and he is WTF, why the fedora? PCGC, gossiping about a mutual friend. WTF, out of nowhere, apropos of nothing, you know, if I ever took a girl home, I wouldn't even sleep with her. PC. GC. WTF, I think I just respect women too much to sleep with them. I just want to know them and worship them and treat them like queens. PCGC, frozen in disbelief. PC, but what if she wanted to have sex with you? Why would you take her home if you didn't want to have sex with her? WTF, just to get to know her properly. You'd just lie next to her all night and we could look into each other's eyes. GC, but wouldn't that be false pretenses? If she goes home with you, she was probably hoping for sex. WTF, women never want sex, they just pretend to please men and most men take advantage of that, but not me. PC, I mean I understand how you could think that, but if I go home with someone it's because I want to have sex with them. I would be really pissed if they just wanted to look at me. WTF, you don't know what you want, you're brainwashed. PC, I was quite drunk and feeling provocative, pretty sure I want sex. WTF, no. You don't understand. Women need respect and to be treated properly. They need to be worshipped, not used. PC, so what I want doesn't matter. WTF, you don't know what you want. You're missing out on so much. The conversation went on and on until the bathroom freed up, but it was a long time ago and I don't remember the details. At the time it was really bizarre. GC and I were nerdy but weren't aware of the neckbeard type. He was clearly trying to impress us, but we were young and promiscuous and the idea that someone would refuse to have sex in favor of some weird fantasy was a complete anathema. What always gets me about neckbeards is how strongly they seem to internalize the message women deserve respect whilst at the same time having no respect for women.
My teacher is an incel neckbeard. By Gwyn_Quartz. Oh, do I have a story for you. So I just started my sophomore year, and my school hired a ton of new teachers. One of those new teachers is Mr. A. Mr. A is a tall, slightly chunky, white male with glasses and the most glorious neckbeard of all time. I have his class first period, so lucky me, I get to see him every other day. On the first day of school he shows up to school in a fedora with steampunk decor on the side, gears and shit, and I was so shocked. I could not believe that he was a real human being. He then proceeds to take off his hat and walk to the front of the classroom with his chin up in the air and his hands behind his back like a true gentleman. He introduces himself as Sire A, and I almost peed my pants from laughing so much. A couple weeks later, we have Spirit Week for homecoming. The first day was Decades Day and my dude shows up in a whole steampunk outfit. Steampunk is cool, but this definitely wasn't. He had on a long blazer and a top hat and everything. By now I knew he was the biggest neckbeard I have ever seen. The next couple of weeks nothing too out there happens. He just is really creepy, especially to all the girls, and he always is the one that calls me out if my skirt is too short. Just weird stuff like that. He constantly uses incel terminology like Chad or Stacy, which is why I think he's definitely an incel. But yeah, nothing too crazy happens. Until one day his school computer was getting fixed by IT, so he uses his personal computer. He was showing the class a PowerPoint when his computer crashed, and on the projector, his home screen was displayed for everyone to see it. It was an anime girl with her fucking boobs out. At this point I couldn't hold on my laughter, I was howling. He just tried to play it cool and said "oh sorry," but no one let it slide that easy. Now every time I see him all I can think about is his screensaver.
At uni for 2 days, met my first neckbeard, nearly died. But he too besipped. Okay, so to premise this story, I'm in my first year at uni studying nursing, and I've never met a neckbeard in the wild before, just occasionally heard of them online. So as a nursing student we are placed on a separate campus that's specifically for medical students. This campus has mark wards with dummies that we do practical exams on, etc. This campus is like 99.9% female, as it's mostly nurses and social workers, not doctors. Second day of uni we was timetabled to do a tour/induction of the main campus, where probably 70%ish of other courses are located. The induction is course mixed, and they essentially cram as many students into this giant lecture hall as humanly possible for upwards of 2 hours, whilst students slowly start dying in this mock sauna. In the chaos of being corralled into this room I lost my friend and just ended up stood next to a total stranger, the neckbeard. This guy was very large both in height and weight, which definitely isn't helpful in the heat of this room. A black t-shirt with a visible stain on the shoulder I later saw was some Metallica come My Little Pony mix. I'm not sure. A short top hat, yes, a top hat on a hot day, 2 days into uni, to a casual event, and a beard that connected from the nose down into visible chest hair. After an hour or so of listening to this god-awful lecture I start talking to this, perfectly normal, girl next to me, and we kinda hit it off and we become friends. Neckbeard decided he wanted friends too. Bear in mind I've just exhausted all my social energy for the day on this girl, so I'm now in one-word reply territory. Neckbeard turns to me and sees my Overwatch t-shirt, the breast cancer one. The sizes being messed up worked out well, as a crop top is what I needed for that room. He starts talking about how it's so awesome to meet a female gamer and that he hates it when girls get abuse on voice chat. I'm living in a meme. Is this the Matrix? So anyway, I continue talking with Neckbeard in my 4-word maximum answer way for the next 45 minutes, and then when the lecture is over I head for the exit in that sweet fresh air. I head over to the smoking area and Neckbeard comes too. I think nothing of it and just continue on my phone trying not to have a breakdown. Neckbeard comes over and asks me if I'm going to the dance tonight. I'm kinda confused at this point because the only event I'm aware of that night is a REEE'd/house event at the Student Union Club, and Top Hat Boy said it as if the event was ballroom. I just tell him no, I'm not, as I'm going to the EDM/house event and that's more my scene, and he no joke replies he'll see the fine lady there. Does the fastest 180-degree heel spin I've ever seen and walks away. Fast forward like 8 hours and I arrived to the Student Union Club with the people from my halls. We make our way in, and at this point I had totally forgot Top Hat Boy. I told my friends at the halls and laughed, then we moved on. Well, there he is, Top Hat Boy, at the bar, between me and that sweet tequila. I try and walk to the bar incognito, but being 5 feet 11 inches and a high heel wearer, I'm about as subtle as a sledgehammer. Top Hat Boy spots me and comes over. I continue with my one-word answers and really just trying to get my drink and leave. He doesn't get the message that I'm not at all interested. Luckily one of my guy friends walked past and I grabbed him and pulled him in, and then weirdly, for him, started holding him like he's my boyfriend. Luckily he understood and played along. My plan was that this would be a very very obvious way of telling Top Hat Boy that I'm not at all interested, but, oh boy, I wish that's all that happened. Finally I managed to somehow lose Top Hat Boy and go about my night with tequila helping me to forget him. I go to the smoking area to cool down and I'm stood at the top of the stairs, and then I see a now drunk Top Hat Boy. He begins to swear at me, calling me a slut and a whore for leading him on, and me being drunk I started swearing back and we got into a huge argument, and then Top Hat Boy pushed me backwards, carkling my ankle, and sending me flying down the 15+ stairs that lead to the actual smoking area, knocking me unconscious and cutting my head open. I spent 8 hours in hospital having various scans of my brain, as they initially suspected I had a bleed on the brain, as I was severely confused and unable to talk at all when I was in the hospital. The neurologist said I was incredibly lucky to have not had major brain injuries, as the damage to my head was caused by repeatedly smashing my skull into the corner of the steps, leaving large blood splatters. The bouncers grabbed Top Hat Boy and held him on the ground until the police came and arrested him. I've been completely out of it now for 6 days, and today is the first day I've been a functioning human, with tomorrow being the day the Uni Plus police update me on what's going to happen to Top Hat Boy. TL, Dr. Neckbeard constantly talks to me, even with me obviously not being interested. I pretend my male friend is my boyfriend to get rid of Neckbeard. Neckbeard pushes me down the stairs, leaving me unable to function for 6 days. Update. Okay, so first day back to uni after Top Hat Boy threw me down the stairs like a slinky. The uni was basically eating my ass, making sure I'm okay, seeing if I wanted counseling etc. I declined, cause TBH I'm not really traumatized by the whole event. Top Hat has since gone off from uni after the police released him, and basically now just waiting to see what is going to happen, i.e. will they find Top Hat Boy.
He smelt my strap-on by TrooperJordan. P.S. Yes, I know I messed up the title. Characters. Me, J, I'm your average 20-year-old, beside the fact that I'm a pretty FTM and not out to many people. Yes, it's important. Around 5 feet 10 inches, average, muscular build, with short auburn hair, blue eyes, if you need an image. Neckbeard, we will call him M, your stereotypical neckbeard. Around my height, 350 pounds, he told me. Smells like a dirty, homeless man's armpit on a 90-degree day, scruffy neckbeard, greasy black hair, dirty anime tee, cargo shorts, and sandals. Peas, I'm not a writer so I'm sorry lol. Now M and I worked at the same grocery store for about 4 months. He was always kind of weird. He always asked me for sex advice, asked deeply personal things about women I've slept with, and always made sexual comments about how I look. Now I knew he was very creepy and had weird interests, but he kept asking me to hang out, and when all my roommates and friends moved home for the summer, I decided why not? What's the worst that could happen? I knew if he pulled some shit my dog would attack him on command. So I said he could come over and we could smoke a bit of pot and play some PS4 or Xbox. He said he was going to bring a PS4 game over and we could just hang, nothing special. So he came over, with a 12-pack of Mountain Dew might I add, and we sat down and I started getting the bowl ready. I knew it was his first time smoking, so I decided we could share a couple bowls, and he throws on some anime and I don't really care, I can get down with almost any show when I'm high. After 1 or 2 bowls, this man is fucked. Hess laughing his ass off in a loud, howl-type laughter. He is scrolling through his phone showing me his furry roleplay account on social media and the DMs he gets from other furries. I'm just sitting there chilling, nodding my head, messaging some girl on my phone. I'm just trying to avoid the X-rated pictures of cartoon animals he is trying to show me. He all of a sudden looks at me and says, "Hey Jay? You're really hot, I wanna touch you in places." Me, being kinda shocked by this bold-faced statement, I kinda just sat there in shock. I responded with a simple, "I'm sorry man, that's not gonna happen." And he simply replied with, "Not even just my little finger?" Me, being ticked, and my dog suddenly alert because he is now getting vibes that I'm not happy, just looked at him. So I try again and just say, "You know I'm into women, right? Like I told you about my ex. Me liking women is my go-to if guys don't accept no the first time, and it normally works. And now thinking that this will be over, I get up to pack another bowl, because now I need to relax, and M says to me, "You know, you have a sweet ass, and you dressed sexy, probably just for me. Did I tell you that I role-play as a female gazelle on, insert popular social media site, I can be a girl for you, just for tonight?" Now I'm pissed. I look at my outfit and laugh because I'm literally wearing Adidas joggers and my track t-shirt. And I look at him and retort with a simple, "Pull some dumb shit, and I will have my dog attack you." At this point he looks a little startled and glances to my dog, who is now staring at him because I said the word attack, and says words that I never wanted to hear come out of his mouth. "Your dog is hot too, I'm definitely gonna think about you and him as I jerk off tonight. I shit you not." This man had the balls to look at me and say this. Now I'm extremely upset. My dog is my angel, and my dog is literally the reason I stay alive, and no one speaks of him this way. I just glare at this guy, and he literally recoils like prey being eyed down by a wolf. I say to him, "That's fucked up, do not sexualize my dog. That's the most messed up thing anyone has said to me. The only reason you haven't left my house yet is because I know you're high and have no filter in my dog, and I will tear you to shreds the second you pull anything." He starts saying some stuff about how no one ever wants to date him or talk to him. About how he's a nice guy and he doesn't get why people won't give him a chance. He then again says to me, in the same breath, "You're really attractive, I want to do so many things to you. You're a goddess that should be worshipped." Now at this point I'm high as shit and really getting a kick out of this because he isn't getting the point. So I decide to come out with it. "Look I'm a tranny. I'm a guy, I date women. That's why I don't correct people when they call me he/him/sir when we are at work. I'm not your goddess, and you sure as hell aren't gonna fuck me." He looks me up and down, then to my chest and junk, of course, and back at my face and says, "No, you're a girl. You have boobs, and you let people call you she/her. You don't have to be rude." Now, yes, I do let people call me she/her if they don't know me. Customers don't know me, because I am pretty and still look pretty feminine and have a very large chest. Mostly I look like a really masculine, butch lesbian and only pass for a guy about 60% of the time. I look at him in awe and just blurt out all my frustration. "Yes, I get it. I have a woman's body, don't point it out, it makes me very uncomfortable, and makes my dysphoria go insane. I do my best. I bind my chest, I use a packer, I present masculine. I can't get on T because of a family situation." And at this point I'm feeling very self-conscious from his blatant staring at my chest, and I excuse myself to the bathroom to cool down. And when I come back, what is this man doing? He has been rummaging through my dresser and he is now sniffing my strap-on. Now I'm normally a pretty laid-back dude and I'm pretty casual about the fact that I have sex toys. My roomies knew I had them and they would always give me shit for my fake dick and whatnot. He notices me, slack-jawed in the doorway, and just says, "Hey Jay, would you fuck me in the ass with this?" Now you all might be hoping that I beat the shit out of this man, or had my dog attack him. But in the moment, in my extremely high state, I realized how sad this guy is. No one taught him social cues, common decency or anything. All I do is look at him and say, "Fuck no." At this point, has been just getting more and more high, and he says, If I had tits, I would never bind them down. If your boobs can be seen binded, I would love to see them out. At this point I'm pissed, feeling hella dysphoric, and I had been messaging any girl and every girl that would respond on Tinder as an excuse to get this guy to leave. So the first girl that said she was free, I just looked at him and said, "Look Em, I have a girl coming over tonight, you gotta go." And as I start to push him out the door he says, "Wait, a girl? Can I watch?" And I looked at him in awe and just shut the door in his face.
Frank the Nutritionist Neckbeard by ms_hide_is_back. Hi guys. Got a little tale of swift justice for you today. It might be more bad people story than Neckbeard story, but our antagonist was pretty beardy. So, I work out with a personal trainer twice a week. The gym he works out of is one of those specialty gyms, where people who train for major competitions like Ironman and or bodybuilding/powerlifting spend hours at a time, doing things that appear physically impossible to weak little me. It's a great place, everyone is positive and motivated, and Terry's no pickup culture. Unfortunately, they recently hired a temporary nutritionist, a large, smelly, hairy, leering creeper named Frank. Frank is a strange mishmash of neckbeard and health nut. He loves these sorts of shirts, but he always cuts the sleeves off to make them some kind of muscle shirt, presumably because he thinks his pasty, flabby arms qualify as muscular. He guzzles muscle milk, and is always eating a Lenny Larry's complete cookie. There are 2 in a package, and one is a meal replacement for someone like me. According to the other trainers, Frank eats 3 to 4 packages during the 8-hour workday. He is unshaven, unkempt, and smelly. Sour milk and duck butter smelly. The first time I was so unfortunate as to interact with Frank, he was walking around the gym getting in the way. Remember, as a nutritionist he has absolutely no place on the gym floor. I noticed him when he got close enough to me for me to smell him. I was doing squat presses. He approached from behind me and leered hard at my ass. I stopped my exercise and stared at him in the mirror until he made eye contact and scuttled away. I mentioned it to my trainer, Danny, who grimaced and apologized. Has brand new here and so far has not making a great impression. The second time I saw Frank, the owner of the gym, Henry, who is a really lovely man, introduced me to him and recommended his services as a nutritionist. This here is Frank, as our dietitian, while Melissa, usual on-site nutritionist, is on maternity leave. Have you had a consultation with him yet? I replied that I had not, and that I was happy with the diet plan Melissa had drawn up for me. Frank interrupted. I'm sure it could use some updating. Men generally understand the ins and outs of how bodies work on a much more in-depth level, considering we're the stronger sex. Henry looked startled. Frank, that's not at all correct. We've got people here who have made some hugely impressive strides towards their fitness goals, men and women. Melissa is a very educated woman and a fantastic dietitian. We're lucky to have her. Frank looked unconvinced, and busied himself scribbling his contact info on a business card, which he handed to me. Hit me up. He winked. I stared. If you need to update your diet plan. I looked at Frank. I looked at Henry, who looked vaguely troubled. I threw the card into the trash can, and walked back into the gym. After my next session, I was in the women's locker room when one of the female trainers, Ashley, stormed in and started ranting. That guy is such a piece of shit. Hi, Ashley. I'm good, thanks. How are you? Seriously, Hyde? Okay, so not good? Do you know that guy Frank? The nutritionist? Yes, has a creep. I was doing paperwork in the office and this jackass just spent 10 minutes fucking negging me, whining that none of the girls here would give him the time of day, and bitching that nobody liked his diet plans and kept asking when Melissa would be back. I was ignoring him, so I thought he'd finally gotten the message when he stopped talking, but then he started playing some kind of weird anime porn on his phone. When I turned around to yell at him, he just said, Oops, forgot to turn down the volume. And fucking smiled at me. That's disgusting. Did you tell Henry? Henry is on vacation for 2 weeks. I wrote the entire incident out and emailed it to him, but holy fuck. I'm so grossed out right now. Ashley stormed off to shower. I finished packing up my bag, grabbed my cell phone, and walked out of the locker room. Absorbed in my emails, I didn't see, and therefore collided with, Frank. He responded by falling into me, and putting both his arms around me to catch himself. Whoa. Haha, that was almost bad. I felt the same way I do when I know there's a fucking spider on me, except worse. I shoved him away forcefully. He stumbled backwards. What the fuck do you think you're doing, putting your hands on me? I shouted. The gym went silent. Everyone was staring. Frank turned white, then red. Ease up, it was just an accident. Jeez. Relax. Overreact, much? Danny materialized next to me. I think it's best if you stay out of the gym and away from the locker room doors from this point on, Frank. I work here too. I can go where I please. You're the nutritionist. Danny used air quotes. My fury was interrupted briefly by the desire to giggle. There is no need for you to be on the gym floor. Go back to your office. When someone wants you, they'll come to you. Danny is not a tall man, but has very confident and commands a lot of respect. Frank looked uncertain before glaring at him, spitting out something unintelligible about lunkheads, and stomping away. I told Danny I was really uncomfortable around Frank. He apologized and said he would speak to Henry when he returned. Frank was quiet for a while. Everyone eagerly awaited Henry's return. The women in the gym studiously avoided interacting with him. The atmosphere was uncomfortable. Last Friday, I realized I had a message in my other inbox on Facebook. It was from Frank. The idiot didn't even bother making a fake account. F. Hey. F. You there? Ahaha. F. Just saw you this morning, what's up? H. Do you know how incredibly inappropriate it is to look up / contact clients from your job on social media unsolicited? F. Lol, Facebook is for everyone, sweetie. H. My Facebook isn't, which is why it's private. Don't contact me again. F. Oh come on, why are you such an uptight bitch? Haha, we could be friends. H. Absolutely not. I would rather associate with a genital wart. F. God, all the women at this gym are so fucking princesses. H. Leave me alone. F. Come on girl, I'm a really nice guy. F. You just have to give me a chance and I'll show you. F. Dick pic. H. Oh look, a picture of your penis. I'm shocked you could find it. Has Henry seen this? Contact me again and this whole conversation goes to everyone on your friends list, including your mother. Link to his mother's Facebook page. I blocked him, screenshotted the entire conversation, wrote up a detailed list of the times Frank had made me incredibly uncomfortable, including the one Henry was witness to, attached the screenshots, and sent it to the gym, CCing Danny. Danny called me. I am so incredibly sorry, Hyde. That is not the norm here, I promise. I have no problem with you or anyone else at the gym, Danny. Don't fret. I just wanted Henry to be aware that has talking to clients like this. Okay, I understand. I absolutely support you calling him out like this, I can't apologize enough. Henry came back Monday. My session with Danny was Tuesday. He looked like the cat that got the canary. While he tortured the life out of me, he told me the news. Frank had been off since Monday, to return Wednesday. Therefore he had no clue that Henry had come back to an inbox full of complaints about Frank. Complaints ranging from general discomfort to harassment. Screenshots of conversations like mine, some of which indicating he had pilfered phone numbers and emails from company records to contact people. Ashley's report of his inappropriate behavior. even a few demands for gym dues to be refunded because people absolutely would not be returning. People were not fucking having it. And all these emails were after almost every one of his trainers had come to him with some kind of concern regarding our bearded boy, Frank. Now, Henry is a darling man. Has an old cowboy, the size of a fridge, and missing 3 fingers on his left hand. Has got the biggest smile for everyone and a handlebar mustache to rival Sam Elliott's. Has an absolute teddy bear until you piss him off. Danny reported that Henry had lost his shit. There were fountains of expletives. There was a hurricane of profanity. 1 or 2 car items in the office were broken. The outburst was epic. But nobody thought to record it on the sly, so I have no idea how epic it truly was. Henry then calmed down, booted everyone out of the office, and supposedly set to work smoothing things over with the clients who were intent on leaving. I left after attempting to switch my Thursday session to Wednesday, so I could potentially watch the fireworks. No dice. This morning, I got to the gym and was relieved to see it still standing. I found Danny, he gave me snippets of the story between sets pushing the sled. I hate that fucking sled. Frank had strolled in for his shift, clueless as anything. Ashley and 2 other trainers were speaking with Henry, who was manning the front desk. Henry smiled widely at Frank and invited him into the gym for a team meeting. Frank suspected nothing, and came willingly. Henry gathered everyone to the center of the gym, and proceeded to loudly and publicly list every single one of Frank's offenses. Most of them started with, "This motherfucker," and ended with giving me and my business a bad fucking reputation. Danny said that Frank was white as a sheet. Then he turned red, and redder, and redder. Some people were actually becoming concerned that he'd have a stroke. By the end of Henry's speech, Frank was nearly purple. He turned to Frank, who he had not looked at once for his entire delivery, and said, "Now get the fuck out of my gym, you are fired. I will tell every damn gym owner and contact I know that you're a disgusting piece of shit." Frank fled. Needless to say, the gym is back to its positive, motivational, and comfortable self again. TL, Doctor, sometimes swift justice can be had, and it's damned wonderful.
Son, she's gay. By probably Abbott 16. One of my best friends from college, we'll call her Ace, probably has the kindest heart I've ever met. Truly a sweet, caring girl. She's also gay as can be and very proud and obvious about it. In our class there was this young lad, let's call him Bernie. Bernie was exactly what you'd expect, pube-like facial hair that didn't grow north of his jawline, cargo shorts 24/7, various anime and MLP shirts, always carried at least 2 Magic the Gathering decks, one in a fancy holder clipped to his belt, in case some Chad tried disrespecting a fair maiden around him, and his katana was out of reach, hair so oily it should have been invaded for weapons of mass destruction years ago, and a smell that, I kid you not, permeated throughout an entire lecture hall. I never saw him wear a fedora though, oddly. I don't know the specifics of how they met, but as you'd imagine a guy like Bernie instantly fell for a sweet girl like Ace. And at first it was, from my third-party perspective, fairly harmless. He would text her "Good morning beautiful" and or "Just wanted to let you know, you're a great person, and that you should stay hydrated every few days." She said it was a little annoying, but not a big deal and easy to ignore. But, as we all know, ignoring a neckbeard rarely ends well. The texts became more frequent. Texting her, then a few minutes later FB messaging her just to make sure you're seeing me and not getting bogged down by all the more attractive guys probably messaging you constantly. Again, I'd like to point out that like 90+% of her FB posts were about being gay. He should have gotten some hints. Then of course the natural progression was actual stalking. He would follow her everywhere. Always being right there to open a door, cover a puddle with his jacket, grab something for her at the mess hall. Always with some neckbeardy comment like "a treat for my sweet." He would schedule Magic tournaments in her dorm lobby daily, even though he lived on the other side of campus. Thankfully his smell was distinct and powerful, so we always knew when he was about to show up. At the beginning of the next semester, after the first week of classes, she was relieved they didn't have a single class or lab together. Guess who was miraculously added to all of her classes the next week because there was a scheduling error and they put too many people in one class, so I valiantly and humbly took on the burden of switching schedules. And, as you'd expect, the more she said no, please leave me alone, dude I am gay as hell, the more he persisted that she was just lying to herself. That she has clearly been mistreated by so many beta douchebags that when she saw a true, valiant gentleman she experienced feelings so intense for the first time that it tricked her into thinking she liked girls. This all went on for a little over a semester and a half, progressively getting creepier and creepier. Our friend group did everything we could to run interference for her and watch out for him. But our breaking point was when he started camping out in her hallway, an all-girls hall. Ace was too sweet, she didn't want us to do anything drastic until Mbrindy did. But we had all had more than enough. My other best friend and I were in ROTC together, so one day when we were in our camo uniforms we found Mbrindy outside the library and had a chat. We told him that if he continued to harass Ace we would go to campus PD first, but we wouldn't hesitate to take matters into our own hands if the problems persisted any further. Mbrindy gave the usual excuse of I'm just being nice. If a bitch can't take a compliment she doesn't need to send her douchebag bodyguards to threaten me. She can just politely say no herself. To which I replied, Mbrindy, she has said no. A lot. Be a gentleman and accept rejection. No matter what you do her answer will always be no. You could literally be the last guy on earth, but she would still say no, because she is gay. Mbrindy, there you go again. Perpetuating that lie. She isn't gay. Her pure loins, yes, he said, this just don't know how to handle a man of my elegance and honor. At this, my friend had reached his breaking point and threw off his hat and yelled, son, she is gay. She likes pussy more than the three of us combined. That finally seemed to get through to him. We didn't hear or see much of him again. He would occasionally glare at us from across lecture halls, but that's it. TL. Dr. Riffa Neckbeard is harassing you, just get some army guys to yell at him that you're gay. Edit, formatting.
Professor Beardington meets a milady. Humiliation ensues. By kenvader. Finally, a place to share my experience with the truest of gentle sirs. Buckle up kids, this one will take a while. If you need to freshen up or make a quick call, now's a great time. Okay. Enter. Me, mid-20s. Male, friends with everyone, then a lowly staffer on a political campaign. Geekbait, GB, a nerdy girl, just out of college. Bubbly, nice smile. Super cute in her geekdom. BF, best friend from high school. Sigmund Freud, or Professor Beardington III. Neckbeard know-it-all from high school. Set the scene. First, dear readers, you and I have to come to an understanding. For story purposes, I have to confess a sin. At the time, GB and I were Republican staffers. I never admit this on Reddit, for obvious reasons. I know many of you don't like Republicans. That's okay. But for this story, it's a relevant detail. So, at least for now, you and I need to be friends. Politics aside. Deal? Okay, deal. Sigmund Freud is euphoric. He has been since high school, when I first met him. His neckbeard, which is a lush full beard but grossly unkempt, emerges at strange times. Like the middle of summer. Then, like a whisper in the wind, it vanishes. Now friends, there are many attributes of beardom. The trans fat diet, the absence of upper body strength, the thick breath sucked in and out when a milady enters, the unfamiliar relationship with hygiene. You know the symptoms. But to me, the crown jewel of the bearding life, the red flag that soars like a majestic eagle above all others, is the smug neutral attitude. This was Freud. I've always wondered, are neckbeards products of their environment, or is their environment the product of neckbeards? Freud, Professor Beardington, was the smuggest fuck you've ever met. You see, normal people ask questions to help understand a topic. Neckbeards, and especially Freud, ask questions to make themselves look smart. Freud loved to turn the Socratic method on teachers, who tolerated it with mild bemusement. He'd learned just enough about things on the internet to speak about them, oblivious to how silly he sounded. Now this was a small Catholic school in a small town. So we had catechism class, basically Catholic ethics class. Professor Beardington III loved this class. His euphoria would swell like the universe after the Big Bang. And he loved to ask those awful rhetorical questions, so even if I lived a good life but didn't believe in a magic book, I burn in hell? Or do you even know how many contradictions there are in the Bible? He always had this shit-eating half-grin on his face when he did it, like his morning visit to /r/atheism had swollen his brain with so much science, he was bestowing a great gift of intellect on we plebeians. Here's the rub. A lot of kids in the class came from, obviously, Catholic families. Their faith was important to them and surprise, they didn't like Freud shitting on it. They also knew the worst-kept secret in school, Freud was a terrible student. One day we were playing basketball in gym. With a milady near that Freud had been creeping on, he holds the ball for a moment, looks inquisitively skyward and asks us what was my GPA again? Oh yeah. 3.8. My friend yells, so why'd you spend the last 2 summers in summer school? Milady didn't heard the GPA comment, but she sure as shit heard that. Now being a Catholic school, the stupid fundy administrators denied Freud his Dawkins granted right, bestowed on all neckbeards, to dress offensively unfashionable. We had uniforms. Freud was pudgy, not fat, and just wholly unathletic. So his uniform shirt was constantly untucked, and always had crumbs of some unidentifiable beard sustenance on it, maybe Cheetos, maybe barbecue chips, maybe the fossils of a Taco Bell Doritos Locos taco from years ago. Freud's parents owned a successful Honda dealership in town, and they spoiled him. I don't know why they put this kid on such a pedestal, he didn't have any talents. Had he been born an Inuit, the tribe would have pushed him out to sea on an iceberg years ago. But in middle-class America, he was given everything he wanted, along with the right to complain about how hard he had it, and the oppression of fundies, the sweet little nuns who ran our school. These women had more joy and goodwill in their toenail than Freud experienced his entire life. I never visited, but his neckbeard nest was said to be legendary, expensive gaming computers and TVs, in a large basement all to himself. Freud was an only child, and maybe that explained the incessant helicopter parenting. Now I'm a gregarious guy. My social orbit is like a comet, I happily buzz around the solar system, from planet nerd to planet jock to planet emo to planet AP. So I was always friendly with Freud. One night there's a party. I do my usual pre-party ritual with my 4 good buddies. We grab a case of shitty beer and sit in the back of my friend's truck. Our rule was no party until the case is empty, so we'd talk about who was going to be there, who would try to hook up, you know, important high school stuff. My best friend was the anti-neckbeard. Popular, social, athletic, excellent grades. He's a successful lawyer now. He hated Freud. Around beer 4 I told him that I had fucked up royally, and mentioned this party to Freud. His reaction was to push me off the back of the truck. What can I say? I felt bad for the guy and thought some beer and fun might chill him out a little. So sure as shit, Freud shows up. My best friend is talking up some girl, a little hottie from the local public school. At this point Freud has been wandering the room aimlessly, and get this shit, he walks the room with one hand behind his back. No one is talking to him, so I do my social Mother Teresa routine and help the poor and downtrodden. I ask him what's with the hand behind his back, and he says it's something that southern gentlemen do when in the presence of a lady. Freud has also tipped his hat, not a fedora though, to ladies in accordance with his strict southern etiquette. I'm like, Freud, you're drinking Natty Light and wearing cargo shorts. But he insisted this is what gentlemen do. I thought maybe I could find him a Legbeard to talk with and asked him if any of the girls there interested him. Freud had very beady eyes, and he narrowed them at the hot chick my best friend is chatting up. That one, he says, with the undeserved confidence earned only through years of shitty, fawning parenting. I tried to talk him down. But sometimes the train is determined to wreck, so I backed off, had a beer, and watched as he slithered up to my BR and hot local girl. His body language was so weak and pathetic it made me cringe, and ever since then I have been super uptight about good posture. He was just asking for pain, and pain was about to find him. I grabbed the foreign exchange kid from Taiwan, who was hilarious, and said, "Oh man, watch this shit." I can't hear the conversation. But at some point I do hear a "what the fuck?" Watch in slow-mo as hot girl throws her drink at him, which is probably the first liquid Freud's shirt has ever seen. My best friend drags Freud out of the room by the collar. Freud is struggling to get out of his shirt and his pudgy white belly is flopping around like a dead fish. Freud is about to die, as best friend was a star lacrosse player and he is pissed. He throws Freud on the grass outside and is ready to pummel him, but my other buddy and I stop him. We sent him back inside, safe distance from his prey. Freud? What the fuck did you do? Freud, not really understanding how close he came to death, is half sobbing and mutters something about dumb bitches and stupid jocks. Funny seeing that my BF spent most of his academic life on the honor roll. I didn't like him shitting on my boy, so I told him to get his ass home. I still can't remember the exact thing he called me, but it was the equivalent of moral cunt. Alright, Freud. Well done. The basement is probably the best place for you. Safe travels. Party's winding down and the five of us are playing cards in the kitchen. We get it out of BF. Apparently Freud had challenged my friend to a battle of intellect, his term not mine. BF says Freud then tried to kiss this girl's hand or some shit, which I didn't see, but apparently he awkwardly grabbed at her hand and tried to hold it or pull it to his lips to kiss. That's where the what the fuck and subsequent drink bath came from. I never spoke to Freud after that. He wore me down with his condescending bullshit, and him attacking me right after I saved his ass from certain extinction was the straw that broke the camel's back. Until. Flash forward to a recent presidential campaign. I lived in a swing state, and I worked in a state office for a certain former Massachusetts governor's run for president. Geekbait, GB, came to us from another state office. Now I've seen many girls who are 9s turn into 3s because of a shit personality. GB was a solid 6 who became a 9 with her bubbly, cheerful demeanor. Because she was friendly and loved everyone, she was a neckbeard honeypot. She was just attractive enough that NBs thought she was attainable. She was friendly to them, which of course the beards took as an intense sexual interest in their pale, soft bodies. At the time, I had a girlfriend of 2 years, now my wife. I knew GB from past campaigns and we were great friends. She loved sports and sci-fi movies like I did, and we'd have these long awesome conversations about the best sci-fi movies and how her Redskins would beat up on my Falcons. In the final couple weeks of the campaign, we were canvassing in my old hometown. So I told her she should go to a party one of my friends was hosting. We were tired from knocking hundreds of doors that week, and some booze and fun were just what we needed. I'm having a blast, catching up with old friends and everyone loves GB. I was excited because my GF was coming in from grad school later that night and I wanted her to meet everyone. Now any of you who have worked in politics know the cardinal rule and I am an absolute tyrant about enforcing it. Politics and religion invoke very strong feelings in people. Talking about it is fine if you can be polite, but most can't, and especially not if there's a heavy amount of booze lying around. I like being friends with people, and politics/religions is poison to good relationships. So Republican or Democrat, I will change the subject the second you bring up anything political. GB, also a political staffer, is of the same mind. A few friends ask me about how the campaign is going and that's perfectly fine, they just wanted to know what my day was like and what I'd be doing if we won. We didn't, and I had no idea anyway. You know how some girls can sense a creepy presence? Or eyes on them? As I'm talking, I got a shiver up my spine, one that makes you give a slight shake to clear it, and sure as shit, 10 feet away is Freud. Arm behind his fucking back. At this point I've been identified. There's no escape, our eyes made contact. Freud has not changed a bit. Still lived at home. Still had poor hygiene. Still had the smug sense of a man who knows everything, exacerbated by reading lots of blogs on the internet. Oi, where to start? Freud had occasionally attended a junior college a couple towns over but decided to focus on his writing. I think to ask why not work at his parents' dealership, but the way he talked about his parents very derogatory made me think I should just forget it. I didn't care anyhow. I couldn't be more bored with his conversation. I visualize his words bouncing off my face. He's not talking with me, he's talking at me. F me, what a bore. How has this man-child not matured a single day since high school? And he was an immature brat back then. Because this was my turf and GB was from Virginia, I was her social anchor for the party. She'd drift around and meet new people but would usually end up back talking with whatever group I was with. So naturally she approaches. Mentally I try to wave her off, if I have any ESP now would be a good for it to kick in. Too late. She's closed in on me and Freud and I don't think I can protect her. I have panicked visuals of Professor Beardington tugging on her hand or some other weird shit that I'll have to explain the next morning. Now here's the thing about GB. She got to the campaign the same way many young staffers do. She had rich-ass donor parents. She went to an elite prep school for girls outside DC and then a storied New England liberal arts college. Her parents may have helped her get internships on campaigns, but she turned it into a no-shit staffer job with real responsibility. 2 weeks before, she had single-handedly planned an event with thousands of people. That's Secret Service coordination, national press, everything down to food and Porto Johns. That bubbly energy would turn into electric focus when she had work to do. Freud spots her and looks like a wolf about to pounce. The look in his eye is pure predator. This milady was his. And I've got warning bells shooting off in my head. I'm super uncomfortable but lack the social ingenuity to gracefully keep Freud away from this poor girl. GB introduces herself cheerfully and asks him how he knows me. That started a word salad odyssey worthy of Homer. I'm not sure how Freud managed to breathe in between all the yapping, and amazingly despite all the words didn't really answer her question. I'm standing there, horrified. I'm ready to interrupt but GB is classy and she's dealt with this shit before. Like I said, she's geek bait. She knows how to handle social awkwardness and excessive bearding. Needless to say, the conversation turns to the campaign. Freud starts some incoherent rant about how Republicans hate women and actually apologizes to GB for the possibility that her birth control might be taken away. That's right, he told a female Republican staffer that Republicans wanted to take away her birth control. This is a level of inappropriate that defies gravity. I'm done trying to stop this train wreck. I have to see where this shit goes. What did he expect her to say? Oh, thank you my liege for rescuing my birth control from those evil wizards? What possible benefit is there in mentioning birth control, much less healthcare policy, at a party where everyone's having a good time? Now there's an addendum to the cardinal rule. That is, the more passionate you are about a policy/religious tenet/controversial subject, the less you know about it. Passion and knowledge are an inverse relationship. Because when you actually take the time to learn where the other side is coming from, Republicans/Democrats doesn't matter, it's harder to create this fiction about the other guys being evil villains who hate the poor, Republicans, or socialist tyrants who hate American, Democrats. But as political people, as GB and I understood, we create narratives that people understand. We create heroes and villains and try make our guy the hero, and the other guy the villain. We're in the bullshit business because stupid people like Freud have an appetite for bullshit. You're buying? Okay, we're selling. And Freud is your perfect example of why this shit works. Like many neckbeards, he buries himself in a fictional world of media and gaming where there are heroes and ladies and evil forces. This is part of the reason why neckbeards have such strong opinions about political topics. Political pros feed them a narrative that syncs perfectly with their fairy tale worldview. It gives naive beardos like Freud the opportunity to make themselves the hero and white knight for milady, in this case his heroic defense of GB's birth control. Anything that undercuts the narrative, that Freud consumes on the internet like a drug, is a threat to the egotistical Narnia he's built around himself. Freud's magnus opus of a rant crescendos with some incoherent point about how Republicans want to put women back in the kitchen. He looked at GB with such pride in himself, defending ladies from such villainy. He's still happily oblivious that he was dealing with an actual expert, someone who knew our political platform inside and out. It was like the kid who got cut from Little League lecturing A-Rod on how to hit a curveball, just supremely narcissistic and pathetic. So GB is just bored with it all. Her and I know people like this. They get their news from the internet, usually some very weird source that's very speculative and not informed. You see this shit on Facebook all the time, and are convinced it is hard reality. They become swollen with the invincibility of their own expertise. I can't tell you how many ultra-conservative aunts and uncles I've had to patiently explain reality to, so it's not just Freud here. GB not only knows her shit, she was dating the super smart dude who worked on the campaign's healthcare policy at one point. So she's about to break the cardinal rule, which is immediately change the subject when idiots want to talk politics with you. Honestly, I think Freud's birth control rant was a little too much, even for GB. We had been fighting this on the campaign for a while and I think it just got to her. Her eyes narrow and asks, so why did birth control use increase and get cheaper during the 6 years Republicans controlled the House, Senate, and presidency? Which is true, and the basic reason is more people started using it and pharmaceutical companies found new ways to make it cheaper. Didn't really have anything to do with Republicans or even Democrats. But fuck. I've seen this before from Freud's teachers. Freud is a neckbeard and he's therefore has ironclad convictions about everything. Challenge him and you challenge everything he has built up about himself. He's not athletic, he's not popular, He's not charming, but he has convinced himself he is an intellectual giant slayer. GB's single question struck a painful blow that will be answered in kind. He launches what I can only describe as an autistic rant worthy of electroshock therapy. I mean just really rude stuff. GB is lying, she's an idiot, she's a corporate tool. And GB is actually bored with all this. In politics you deal with these people all the time, all answers, no questions, talking their way through a twisting maze of light fact gleaned from the internet, blended with a heavy amount of untrue bullshit, regurgitating it as fast as possible, in no discernible order. See, to us, politics was just a job. We had our beliefs, of course. But we worked quietly to achieve those ends by voting each election and doing campaigns. Democrat Speaker of the House Tip O'Neill had a famous relationship with Republican Ronald Reagan, where they were enemies during by day but great friends by night. That was politics to GB and I, just another day job. Good friends and a happy family were far more important. To neckbeards like Freud, political views are his life. His entire self-worth is tied up in being intellectual. Burst his balloon, and you're demolishing his whole existence. That's why he reacted so aggressively. Doesn't matter though, I've had enough of this shit. It validates the cardinal rule, never talk politics, it only makes you mean and stupid. In the middle of his rant, I take GB by the arm and just turn our backs and walk away. Freud is humiliated twice now. He doesn't like being ignored. But smart thing to do would be to just pack it in and call it a night, just like that party back in high school. Does he? Of course not. He mutters after her, fascist bitch. Such angst for a spoiled upper-middle-class white kid, and who talks like that anyway? I think it came out a little louder than he intended. In your parents' basement, you don't have to worry about volume control. So, fuck. This guy is such a fucking awful neckbeard, his bearding so grotesque and out of control, that he has infected me with it. I now have to white knight for GB. I mean, I'm a nice guy but I can't let that shit go. She's my guest and you don't fuck with my guests, especially one as sweet as GB. I turn around, look him dead in the eye, and say leave. Now. He knows instantly he fucked up, but he doesn't want a third round of humiliation. My friend chimes in, she works on the campaign, dipshit exclamation mark ... So does he me. His face reddens. Reddens. Tears well up in his eyes as he's now the center of the party's attention. This is the social A-bomb that we all fear, none of us want to be in his shoes. I'm about to escort him out the door like Madge's best friend did years ago, but Professor Beardington III collects the remainder of his dignity and turns to leave. But not before little GB, the sweet, friendly proper product of finishing school at a renowned college, punches Freud square in the jaw. She did not slap, she did not push. She punched. Freud took it like a bitch and ran out the door. Some scattered applause followed him out. I'm staring with my mouth open, and GB shrugs and says let's go get another beer. Me, GB? GB, yeah? Me, I can't believe you did that. This town is full of people who have wanted to do that for years. GB just smiles. Me, I'm not going to lie, I'm totally hot for you right now. I said it jokingly but, man, seeing her emasculate Professor Beardington makes me think there was an awful lot of truth to it. GB said thanks for sticking up for me and gave me a light kiss on the cheek. This is what I mean when I talk about personality taking her from a 6 to a 9. But, fuck me, who is standing up for who exactly? When my GF showed up, I had GB tell the story to her. I wanted to hear her perceptions of what happened and her impersonation of Professor Beardington. She was understated, oh he was just very unpleasant and completely left out of the punch. Neckbeards like Freud do this shit for a reason. They are not confident or social but they want what confident/social people have. They try to patch the holes left from not being wanted or desired with video games, movies, and junk food. I will never shit on a neckbeard for playing games like Warcraft, because I understand what it gives them. If they play it enough, they build a character that is wanted and desired. They get to experience what it's like for people to want something from them, and they'll never get that out of life. Shame on us if we try to humiliate them for wanting to be wanted and important to others, we all have that in us. So I sympathize with beards like Freud because this has to be a very lonely existence. But they also deserve some of what they get. The neckbeard's disconnect from reality is the rotten apple that spoils the bushel. They attack jocks, even though going to the gym would help build their self-confidence and attractiveness. They attack fundies, even though spirituality not necessarily faith, but spiritual nourishment and acknowledgement would help heal the emptiness inside. They attack the well-to-do as corporate stooges, even though they crave that success. The constant self-deception, fed by an endless supply of fiction, video games, stories, creates an awful human being that is so bad, they make people around them bad too. How else can you describe sweet little GB punching a guy, or perennial nice guy me incited to get violent with little shits like Freud? DL, Dr. Neckbeards aren't a product of their environment is a product of neckbeards.
Comic book guy loses it on a neckbeard, and it's hilarious by wyattkelly. This happened yesterday, and I'm still just relishing it. So there's a comic book shop in my town that I go to infrequently. It's very clean, well stocked, run well, and the staff is versed in anything you might want. The latest Spider-Man? Got it. An independent lesbian dungeon crawler comic? Yup, got that. A decent selection of manga and imports? I've been told it's good. I go there to peruse their graphic novels and collected editions, as I'm old and grumpy and don't have the money to buy single issues for the most part. Anything you want, the owner will order on the spot, and contact promptly when it's available. Really good guy, really good shop. Anyway, I had the day off, so was wandering the downtown, and ducked in to see if anything of interest came up. I get greeted by the store dogs, give them some belly rubbings, and then set off into the stacks, looking for some collected X-Men comics. While I'm back there, I notice this odor. Like old cheese and gym socks. I sniff my own pits, trying to see if it's me, then actually pull a couple of books off the shelves to see if any of them are rotting. Nope, nothing so benign. Instead I catch glance of this wondrous example of masculinity. He's rotund, he's wrapped in a trench coat, and he has no neck. It's like someone just plopped a hairy bowling ball on a pair of shoulders. I try not to stare, as he does actually have a neckbeard and a broad-brimmed hat. He looked like a goth Amish. He's ignoring me, so I do the same. Just about that time I hear the shop dogs go skittering across the wooden floor to greet the next customer. A lady's voice coos, and then happy pants as the dogs accept their customer bribe. I find a collection of Eisner Spirit comics, check the price, and then head up towards the counter. I glance over to the young lady who's playing with the dogs, and I gotta admit, she's cute. Short, blonde, wearing striped leggings and a denim jacket covered in pins. She looks up at me, I give her a casual wave, and go about my business. She's at most half my age, and I try my best not to be creepy. She gets up from the dogs and goes the counter before me, not butting in line. I was still making my way, and asks the owner if her manga had come in yet. I check out some stuff in the display case, Muppet Show tumblers, yay, and just flipped through my new book. Now this is where this story just takes a turn that I won't ever forget. The owner pulls out the hold box, and places 2 books on the counter. Before I know it, I nearly get bowled over by a mishbeard, who's come lumbering up from the stacks like he'd heard the siren call of his people. "Ah, m'lady. I see you love manga too." He stands far too close to this poor woman, and I'm trying not to gawk. I've read the stories here a lot, been amused by them, but not once / in my life have I ever actually heard someone called m'lady outside of a Ren fair. Yeah, I really like Kakegurui. I think that's what she said, and apparently there's an ongoing series called Kakegurui Vampire Gambler. I had to look this up when I got home, and a mishbeard just snorts derisively. Oh, that's okay, I suppose, but a lady of your caliber shouldn't read something so violent. Might I suggest I guide you back into the stacks so I might show you wondrous treasures such that you've never seen before? He's leering at this young woman, and the owner and I share a glance of, "Are you fucking kidding me?" The woman looks very uncomfortable, and shakes her head. "No, I'll just pay for these and..." A mishbeard lays his hand on the books and actually takes them from the counter. "For shame. I promise you, don't waste your money on these. Come, I'll show you something that you'll absolutely..." He's reaching for the lady's retracting arm when the store is cut through like lightning. "Quit it." A mishbeard looks up, startled as the owner growls at him. "Leave her alone. You're bothering her." A mishbeard looks shocked, and rears up to his full height. He's a bit taller than I'm at 5 feet 10 inches, and nearly half as wide. So he does look a little intimidating. I put down my book and cross my arms, just witnessing this. The poor girl takes a step back, and the dogs are looking perplexed. Master is unhappy. Why is Master unhappy? Who made Master unhappy? We must slobber on them. A Mishbeard sneers at the owner. This doesn't concern you. My shop, my customers, my rules. Yeah, it does. I spend hundreds of dollars. Oh, shut your stupid ass pie hole. The owner is building up a head of steam, and I watch in fascination at a full-blown vending. You come in here twice a week, spend 3 hours stinking up the joint, and if I'm lucky, you'll spend $10 on some mainstream manga that even Naruto fans would find dumb. You harass the other customers, and now you're this close to manhandling an actual good customer. Get out of my shop. You're banned. A Mishbeard looks around for support, and there's only me, the silent witness. I shake my head. Don't look at me, Sparky. You are being an ass. A Mishbeard deflates, flaps his arms, and storms out, the dogs barking at his heels. Well, as close as these two confused hounds can bark. The room returns to normal, just the wisps of BO to tell of his passing. Nothing else to tell, really. Lady got a discount, I bought my comic, and went for a delicious sandwich. Wish I could say I ran into a Mishbeard, but that would have just been too perfect.
Chivalrous Sam tries to Facebook, or how I learned what it's like to share the internet with a cyberbulimic by Lady_Saber. This will be the 6th installment of Sir Sam the Chivalrous, and spans most of Christmas break, including screenshots as well as interaction between Sam and I. Player 1 is me, Lady Saber, 16-year-old foreign exchange student from Belgium. Exam week is finally over, so I'm enjoying the holiday out of town with my host family. Also, I'm a huge A Song of Ice and Fire / Lord of the Rings nerd. Player 2 is Sir Sam the Chivalrous Smooth Cheeks, the whitest knight of all. Generally a lard, ever-present aroma of stale Italian food. Never removes his trilby, because he never sleeps and never showers. Sam also has the Facebook habits of someone with an eating disorder. I have no other notion of how to describe it. Hell, make 4, 5, 6 posts in rapid succession about anything ranging from atheism, look what a nice guy I am, and general rants designed to flaunt his intelligence. This is the bench. About an hour later, Hell come back and purge all of them, or 4 out of 5, no matter how much time he spent on thesaurus.com writing them. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen, and it's why I'm not able to screen cap most of the stuff he actually posts. Player 3 is John. Guy I'm crushing on, all-around good person. We aren't officially dating yet, but it's heading that way. Arch nemesis to Sam. Hess not in this story, but he gets mentioned, so that's a bit of his backstory. Sam's posts / comments are in red. Random people are in blue. Pink is from ladies. This story begins immediately after the previous one, the day before Christmas break. I check Facebook, mostly keeping up with friends and family overseas, and I see one of Sam's tirades clogging my feed like a cholesterol plaque. Breaking up with people you aren't dating is hard, guys. Also, that comment should give you an idea of Sam's dating history. Apparently, in middle school, Sam made up a series of girlfriends in more and more outlandish tales. He'd find some girl on the internet, snag a few of her pictures, and flaunt them around. As soon as people would start poking holes in the story, he'd break up with her and start over again. Except each time, the girl would get hotter and more amazing, and he'd round more bases with each of them. Eventually, he claimed he'd gotten laid by some out of his league blonde. Unbeknownst to Sam, that girl happened to live nearby, and was in high school just down the road from the middle school. Some people who knew her got in touch, confronted him, with her in tow, and made a spectacle worthy of r/public freakouts. Continuing with our tour, if you look to your left, ladies and gentlessers, we can see a homemade meme being circle-jerked by Sam and a beardy friend. Check your friend zone reads, to me, in the same voice as check your privilege. I checked, it's still there. Also, I found the asshat in question. Sir Sam also makes a pass at a lady who appreciated his thought-provoking quote. All of these posts are from the same day. Those 3 are the only surviving companions of about 18 or so. You thought I was kidding? The next 2 days, radio silence. Then, in the afternoon, a text message. It's a screenshot of What Makes You Beautiful by One Direction. Not being weird, just a song I like. I look it up, give it a listen. It's poppy and repetitive, so I turn it off after about 30 seconds. A few hours later, he follows up with "What did you think?" Not my taste. My taste is mostly screamo and classical orchestra, with a few select American alt-rock bands. Well, what is your taste? I forget, sometimes, that there is no font for sarcasm. Gospel. No response, other than a string of Facebook posts, of which only 2 survive. If you go to church, you're literally Satan. If you don't, you're Neckbeard smoosh. Everyone's a winner. I debate telling him that it was just a joke, but I dread the outcome of that conversation, and I don't have any idea of how it would go. For the rest of break, silence. I have a blast with my host family, get more Christmas loot than I know what to do with, and generally enjoy my break from school and Sam. It's after New Year's Day when Sam gathers up enough alpha male energy to message me again. I keep up a strained conversation with him for about half an hour while he talks about Call of Duty, and stuff he got for Christmas. There are many times where I don't know how to respond, but he happily fills in the spaces and keeps on keeping on. Eventually, he asks what's wrong? Nothing, really. You're not saying much. Yay, just not in the mood to talk right now. Oh. What did I do? Sam, that's a pretty long list. I know. Sorry. I just haven't really had a girlfriend that I could talk to very much before, so I'm still figuring stuff out. I'm not your girlfriend, Sam. I know, I mean like a friend that's a girl. Okay, there was a space between girl and friend, so I give him the benefit of the doubt. Before I can further clarify the status of our relationship, heads off in another direction. So, do you speak French? Yes. That's cool, me too. Okay, that came out of nowhere like a clown in a shitty funhouse. I'm a bit skeptical, so I push it gently with him. The following messages were in French, and I've translated. You speak French? Yes. I didn't know that. Why didn't you tell me? I don't know. Okay. What are you doing now? I'm hungry. The shocker of a lifetime. I'm being eaten. What? You're being eaten? Yes, I'm being eaten for lunch. I give up here, because it's pretty clear he's using some translating software or an online dictionary. R.I.P. in peace my mother tongue. A little explanation about the French language. In English, when you want to use a verb, you need a helping verb to go with it. I am playing, or, he is eating. In French, you don't. I eat, I am eating, I do eat, are all the same phrase. You have the subject, and then the verb, the helping verb is implied in the action. Some English speakers, however, will try to translate literally from English to French. In this case, Sam translated I am eating directly, and the result, I am being eaten. At the very least, we can rest assured that this will be the most effective weight loss plan ever. Later that day, he follows with "Lol, I don't really speak French. Was just messing with you." I don't give a reply. None of this, however, is the crown jewel. Emboldened by what could only be a vat of homemade ravioli, thanks, Mom, Sam takes aim. Hey, a bunch of friends and I are going to see The Hobbit the Saturday after break. Do you want to tag along? John has beat him to the punch, actually, but I'm not keen to give him that detail. No thanks, Sam. Why not? I don't give a reply. Soon enough, though, he follows up with "Bet you're going with John, huh? Am I really that transparent?" There's no point in lying to him. Yes, I am. Okay, I get it. I don't think he'll ever be able to convince you that has bad news, but I promise someday y'all see what I mean. This isn't exactly a tough bet. Either we break up, or never become an official couple, at some point, anytime in the future, and you win. Otherwise, we get married and live happily ever after, because that's a realistic option. Another cheesy, meaty gorge of academic papers ensues on Facebook, followed by a book-burning level of purge, and this gem is the only survivor. If you make it out of that alphabet soup with all of your brain cells, I commend you. At the time, I really didn't understand why he, and people like him, all have this same pattern of thesaurusing every fifth word in their online posts. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I have an inkling. Most neckbeards fancy themselves as being on a higher intellectual plane than everyone else. Yes, most of them are slightly above average intelligence, but nowhere near the genius scale, and almost all are chronic underachievers. Despite this, they've built an image in their heads of being the brainiest guy in their zip code, so they talk the way that they believe an actual smart person would talk. In the spirit of Facebook Illinois, end with a made-up quote. A smart man can play dumb, but a dumb man in no way can play smart. This may be the last post that I write about Sir Sam for a while. I've acquired a small following of trolls, so I'm taking a break while they get bored. I also have real-life stuff to take care of. I don't want to saturate either NeckbeardStories or Fat People's stories with tales of Sir Sam, so there'll be more stick and less carrot for now.
Neckbeard tries to woo a lady by playing her in Street Fighter by Sunflower Spot. Not a personal story, but one I heard secondhand from a friend. All names have been changed to protect involved parties. To set the stage. The players. Kid equals friend. Tall, redhead, gorgeous. Amazing rock climber, but also super nerdy and a whiz at old arcade-style video games. Is a regular con-goer, and just in general an all-around cool gal. Prime Neckbeard bait. Greasy McBeardson, GB for short, equals our Neckbeard of the day. The scene, Eggfest 2016. Kid is a regular at most cons within a decent distance of our hometown on the East Coast. She, being super into gaming, was logging some hours at the game room at Eggfest. She found a Street Fighter machine, and started playing. Not long after, our greasy star approaches after apparently creepily watching her play, and asks if she wouldn't mind going a few rounds. Of course he'd go easy on her, m'lady. Her, being the laid-back person she is, shrugs and says, "Whatever dude, knock yourself out." Sure enough, she crushes him in under a minute. Cue excuses. "Well, I presume he stuttered, I was just going easy on you so you wouldn't feel bad." Says he wants to play another round. Kid obliges. Cue another embarrassing loss. "Wow, I mean I really haven't played for a while, just gotta get back into the swing of it." Another round. Another crushing defeat. There must be something wrong with this machine. GB is getting frustrated at this point. He's starting to sweat. Another round. Loses again. Rinse and repeat. Things continue like this for quite some time, him making up excuses the whole way, Kit just stoically taking this guy down. Not once does he acknowledge that she is genuinely better than him, just greases up the joystick and sweats and stutters. After around 10 or so rounds of humiliation, there's quite a crowd built up. They finish another round. Guess who won? Not GB, when GB turns suddenly to Kit and the following exchange ensued. "GB, so can I get your number?" Kit, "Yeah, you can have a digit for every round you won." Cue mic drop and Kit walking away dramatically while GB stutters. R.I.P. Greasy McBeardson.
Drunkenly, I accidentally entered a Neckbeard tribe gathering by Hambona. Background: this story takes place a year or two ago. I was in college. A girl I thought was kinda hot due to me being in my "I'm attracted to wounded birds / cute but crazy girls" phase. Let's call her crazy cute. She was going for a BA like me. She had invited me to a party hosted by a friend of hers. I decided to go, but I was on my way home from a bar. I was pretty toasted. So I head into the main room of the apartment the party is in, see crazy cute. She's on a sofa, legs across some guy's lap and deeply engrossed in conversation with him. Yay, not happening. I think to myself, that ship has sailed for tonight, and decide to just hit on some random chicks for fun. I take a quick look around the room, see a decent-looking girl with an anime tee, bangs and big glasses sitting on the floor playing some kind of board game with two dudes, one on either side. I sit down, smile at her and say, "Hey, can I join?" Guy on her left, wearing some kind of small, dark suede leather hat, yeah, should have been an early warning, seems aghast, says what no we just placed all the but gets cut off by the girl saying sure, we were just about to start. Suede hat starts whining, something about number of players but I ignore him, smile at her again and say why don't you show me how to play, and move on the board, nudging myself in between her and Suede hat. He seems quite pissed at this. I look over at him and see he is clenching his jaw and his face is pale, won't meet my eyes. I have to suppress a laugh. So we start to play, the girl explains to me, I go along, joking about this and that, having a laugh with the girl. The two other guys are not treating this as a laughing matter. They play with the brooding faces of chess masters. Suede hat starts to complain, louder and louder, that I am making mistakes, or breaking rules. Girl, relax, it's his first game. Suede hat, yeah, and maybe he shouldn't play, he's messing it up for everyone. Girl, I think he's doing fine. Me, yeah, could you just chill a bit? Suede hat, you're just a drunk douche who wants to ruin the game for us. Me, soft voice, hey, take it easy buddy, I'm doing my best. It's just a game I turn to girl, it's about having a good time, right? Girl smiles at me. Here I decide to push it a little and sort of stroke her knee, and then leave my hand there. Yeah, not very smooth, but what do you want? I was pretty drunk. Success, she smiles at me, lets my hand stay there, we keep playing. When she can see I shoot Mr. Whiny a smug smile, he seems to go livid. He is now clenching both his hands and his jaw, looks away from me. And this is where I start to feel something strange in the room, like I'm being watched. And it seems to have gotten quieter. I take a quick look around. And that's when I realized where I had ended up. The guys around me were all nerds of mixed caliber. Most of them silently staring at me. Greasy hair, wispy mustaches, actual neckbeards, dark dress shirts, most of them chubby, some of them with big, gaudy gothic jewelry. Crazy cute is gone and my hand is currently resting on the knee of the only girl at the party. The neckbeards are staring angrily at me. They feel I am intruding, invading even their territory. They realize they have been caught staring, and start talking again, but the ambience of the room is one of indignation and anger. The two neckbeards playing with me are feeling the power of the tribe's anger. They don the mantle of their duty, to display their dominance by crushing the invader at the board game. They switch tactics, no longer trying to win but going out of their way to make me lose. They are breathing heavily through their noses, smiling triumphant yet angry smiles when they explain, with patronizing voices as if speaking to a child, how their actions removed some of my pieces from the board or cast me some cards. I couldn't give two shits and keep playing. The girl, however, who seems quite adept at the game, is starting to get annoyed with them. Girl, hey, you guys are sort of being jerks, you're doing nothing but attacking him, it's in taste to go after a beginner. Suede hat, no, what do you mean? Turns to me, twisting his voice into a high nasal pitch, it's a game, it's about having a good time. A few more turns go by. Suede hat snappily smacks a few cards on the board. Suede hat, there, this way I can move over here and take these two. Reaches for two pieces on the board. Me, wait, you said just a moment ago that this is used to block, put a card on the table. Suede hat, you shouldn't be able to use that card yet. Me, but I am. Here he finally snapped. Suede hat angry, raised voice, fuck you, you stupid fucking normie shithead. You don't even like this game, you just want to ruin it for people who actually enjoy it. Girl, geez, calm down. I sat quietly. The room was tense. Everybody staring. Me, okay, you know what? You are killing the fun for everybody here, let's just call it a game, you win, okay buddy? I put my cards down and stand up, give girl a disappointed look and start to leave. As I leave the room, the neckbeards start buzzing again, the tribe debating in heated, low voices if this constitutes a win or a loss. Girl comes after me. She starts apologizing for them. I'm chill about it and ask if she wants to go catch a movie or something instead. She says sure, gets her purse from the other room and we leave. Soon after the door closes I hear a glass break inside.
Neckbeard Mike just wanted to crash Milady's wedding by deleted. Hey y'all. It's been a damn minute, hasn't it? Sit back, relax and enjoy the most recent and possibly final installment of Neckbeard Mike. I've missed you fools. Be me, Chemical Uprising, 22, engaged and a few months away from tying the knot to chase 23M. Do not under any circumstances be Neckbeard Mike, a greasy, large ball of stinking euphoria, pube beard and all. So after the last encounter I had with Neckbeard Mike, check my older Reddit posts, where he basically admitted to receiving head from a 12-year-old girl, I wanted to keep my distance. To quickly summarize what happened after that, I managed to get into touch with a friend of NM's who actually knew the girl and her BF, and the cops got involved. PM me if you want more information. This story takes place 2 years after that. I told Chase everything straight away and he wasn't comfortable with me hanging around with NM anymore. He said he didn't mind messaging, and understood with NM's breed that I needed to slowly wean him off instead of going cold turkey. Understandable. Regardless, I basically stopped replying to NM's Facebook messages and eventually wanted to delete him off social media once he realized I wasn't going to reply. The logic behind this was that if I gave him some time to process that I wasn't his friend anymore, he would get the hint on his own and move on. Goodness gracious me, that's not what bloody happened. Over the next few months, it was easy for me to forget that NM existed at all. I was busy with wedding preparations and had landed my first real job teaching the 2nd grade. Life was actually going really well. That is until the messages started back up. NM, hey chemical uprising, how's things hanging princess? Shudders. Me, hey NM, things are good. Hope things are good with you. NM, just continuing devoting my life to food and not much else. How's Chase? The wedding is coming up. I can't wait to wear my finest clothes. I was looking online for monocles. I feel like I would look so dapper with one at a formal event. Me, Hess, well thanks. Nice chatting with you. Hope everything is good. Chat soon. After that last message, NM left me unseen. This was quite strange coming from NM, who was a literal psycho and would usually message me a shit ton and then write vague Facebook statuses that I knew were about me, when I wouldn't reply promptly. He wrote one status after the message exchange simply saying women aren't what they used to be. Charming NM as usual. I totally forgot about my ass being left unseen and again went about my life. A week later, and 2 weeks before my wedding, I received a notification on Instagram about a comment NM had left on one of my recently posted pictures. It was a selfie of Chase and I with a corny ass caption saying something like 2 weeks to go. NM, being a straight creep, commented on the photo saying I still haven't received my invite to the royal wedding. Smile, the monocle has been bought and is patiently waiting, smile. Now this is when I started to get worried. Knowing how NM is, he would do something crazy like show up to my house to ask where his invite was, and I very obviously was not inviting him. I deleted his comment and blocked him on Instagram. I hoped he wouldn't notice. He did. He rang me straight away. I didn't pick up. He rang again. I too ignored that call. Eventually, after over 10 calls, he left a voicemail asking why I was avoiding him and is our friendship worth nothing to you? Before Chase, I was the most important male figure in your life. Does that mean nothing to you? He also said that Chase was a player and didn't deserve a fine woman to have as his plaything. I saved the voicemail and didn't reply to him in any way, shape or form. I blocked him from all social media because I was done with him constantly harassing me. Sad that it took so long for me to realize it. Flash forward to the day before my wedding. NM was totally out of my mind and I was so excited to be marrying my best friend in the entire world. Sam, old friend from uni who initially introduced me to NM because they went to primary school together, messaged me, excited to be coming to the big event tomorrow. She also let slip that she may or may not had accidentally told NM where my wedding would be. I was furious. It may have been wrong of me, but I told her to not show up at my wedding because she had literally betrayed me and this was literally the last thing I needed. I called my cousin who I knew would handle it if shit hit the fan. I tried to forget about it and relax. Strangely, I did. I shouldn't have been so calm though. The next day, the ceremony in the morning was beautiful. Everything went to plan. I had forgotten about NM and as we arrived to the hall I couldn't wait to dance the night away. Right before I was supposed to walk down the stairs at the reception, I receive a text saying, "Surprise lady, your Prince Charming awaits outside." I freaked out and messaged my cousin to deal with it. I walked down and we did our first dance and then sat down to eat the first course. Right before I put the first spoonful into my mouth I spotted a cowboy hat amongst the crowd of people between the tables. Now my wedding had about 650 plus people in attendance, so I was shocked I saw it. There's only one person I knew of that would wear a fucking cowboy hat to a formal event, and that was the one and only, Neckbeard Mike. He had on black slacks that were too long for him, runners, an ill-fitting black shirt, a long leather trench coat and a cowboy hat. To this day I still don't know if he had a monocle. I told my cousin, who was in the bridal party and seated closely to me, to kick him out. I saw him drag NM outside. According to my cousin, who told me what happened a few weeks later, NM wanted to fight for my honor and try to fight my cousin, who is a boxer. It ended up with NM getting his nose broken and my cousin calling the cops to remove his trespassing ass. I never heard from Neckbeard Mike again. TL, Doctor, Neckbeard, who never leaves me alone, rocked up to my wedding uninvited, gets his nose broken and was escorted away by police. To those long-time readers of my past stories, I'm sorry to end it on such an anticlimactic note. I'm so glad I don't have to deal with this crazy ass any longer. Love you all. Stay euphoric.
My soon-to-be husband is a neckbeard. By Sot and Hungry 18. Okay, I know what you're thinking from the title. What did this poor girl get herself into? Well, I'll tell you. I was listening to stories on YouTube and heard the description of a neckbeard. I then came to the realization that my soon-to-be husband is a neckbeard. But not the creepy type. He is almost every sense of the word neckbeard. Looks-wise he has the full-on neckbeard. He is starting to come around to shaving more though. He dresses in button-up shirts, he wears a freaking fedora. He used to have a trench coat, but I bought him a leather jacket of which he now wears. Acne, which is getting better as we do weekly face masks together. The only thing look-wise he's not, is fat, because well, he physically can't get fat, B have medical condition of which he can't, he also do not smell bad as he does take showers every other night. Personality-wise is the same too. Socially awkward, can't pick up a social case, and overly confident about things he shouldn't be. And yes, a lot of miladies and shall we. This and shall we. That's. He is obsessed over My Little Pony. He plays Magic the Gathering and other card games as well as a lot of video games. He also is crazy about all things anime and Japanese. However, despite all of this I do, in fact, love him with all my heart. He treats me right, not in a pervy way like most, and I do like a lot of the stuff he's into. I find him cute in his own dorkish way. We just kind of clicked when we met. He's also an amazing father and I am super excited to marry him next summer. Note, yes, I know it's not your typical neckbeard story, but when I realized I was marrying one I lost my shit laughing. My soon-to-be husband asked what was up and I came out with between laughs, you're a neckbeard. He looked at me confused, so I explained the explanation of what that meant. And he looks at me and says, "Wow, guess I am one." And we both continue laughing. TLDR, I love and am marrying a neckbeard.